All right, what's going on, everyone out there on the interwebs? This is NESruler22 casting live. Well, it's not live, but doing our usual podcast. This is episode number 8 of the 22 Shots of Moods and Horror podcast. We got a full show for you guys, like we do every week, but this week it's going to be a little bit different. We're going to start out with news with JP, hop into the question of the week, which is your top 5 horror sequels, but it has to be the second film in the series to be included in your list. We're going to go into a short segment of Moodz Swingz. Then we're going to hop in right into the series of the week, I guess you could say, and we're going to be discussing the Phantasm series in full, starting with the first one, going all the way to the fourth. So, joined, of course, as always, by my co-host, JP, aka Doubleshot J. Follow him on his channel at youtube.com/Doubleshot J. And of course, the man himself, Moodz616. You can follow him on his channel at youtube.com/Moodz616. But you're already watching this here, so you already know him. But let's get straight into it with the news with JP. So go ahead, JP.
Okay, this week, nothing amazing, but there is probably my favorite piece of news this week. It's actually, just because it sounds very interesting, it's Kevin Smith, who I thought said that he was only doing one more film. I remember him saying that.
Yes,
recently.
he was going to do this hockey film, and then he's changed his mind a million times.
Yeah, okay, so he announced that, I guess on one of his podcasts, a while back, they talked about a idea. They was goofing around, and they accidentally, much like they did with Tusk, they brainstormed a Christmas horror anthology film that would talk about...
Oh, that's an anthology film? That is awesome.
Yeah. So Santa Claus, they're going to embrace this, I guess, the Scandinavian kid-eating Christmas creature known as the Krampus. So I guess that's what it's kind of going to be a lot about. He said he finished the screenplay. I'm going to call it... I think it's going to be called like Comes the Krampus or something like that. But he said it's like inspired by stuff like Creepshow and stuff. 4 terrifying tales stitched together by a freaky framing device. He said it was a blast to write. It was totally new to him. He never wrote a screenplay actually with somebody else. He also went on to say that he's going to co-direct along with Andy McElfresh. I don't know who that is, but he's going to direct the Krampus versus the third grade episode. And then Jason Mewes is going to direct Hitler's Krampus episode.
Oh, man. This is going to be just so much fun. You can tell already.
And then he will direct Mask Maker. That one's going to be more gothic. The first one, the Krampus versus the third grade, it has, in parentheses, so fucked up. And then Jason Mewes is going to be a twisted time period piece. And then the final episode will be directed by Carol Banker, The Proposal, which is fucking nuts according to them. And then there's another, the framing device is called the Bad Babysitter. So you can kind of, just by the framing device, you kind of can see how it's going to be set up.
Jason Mewes, that's going to be fucking
hilarious,
man. It's going to be so funny.
Has Jason Mewes ever directed anything before?
I don't think so.
That's since he's got sober, at least.
In parentheses, it says, yes, that Jason Mewes. So
this sounds like so much fun. Like, I'm actually like super like stoked for this project. Right?
Yeah, I thought it sounded great, dude. I was like, really? Like, first of all, I love holiday horror, Christmas themed horror. Secondly, I love fucking anthologies, and honestly, I'm a pretty big fan of Kevin Smith, although I don't like religiously follow him or his work like some people do. I enjoyed like everything that I've seen by him.
I can't even think of another holiday horror anthology film.
I know.
Like all based on, like all the... I mean, Tales from the Crypt has, a short in the original film that's, on Christmas and stuff, but not the whole film. So this is pretty cool.
Also, he goes on to say that he's feeling like it, by the script. He's thinking like a $2 million movie. He says he's going to start scheduling and a budget next week, but he wants to shoot like right on the heels of Clerks 3, which he hopes will start in April. April 7th to be exact. So, that's pretty cool. Kevin Smith is dabbling in the world of horror once again. I'm surely to be more on maybe the comedic side, but, still, that should be pretty fun. I'm looking forward to this. Sounds cool. I like it.
That sounds a lot of fun.
Yeah, this is going to be an awesome project, I think.
Yeah. That's interesting coming from him, so.
Yeah. And then moving on, we have the guys who directed The Raid, Killers, and VHS 2 are going to be making a film called The Night Comes for Us. I really don't know anything about it. I just thought I'd throw that in there. And then fucking Anchor Bay is picking up what I guess started as like a digital series called Fear Clinic. Has Robert Englund in it and Fiona Dourif and a few other people. I guess they're gonna release it like in like a full format or whatever. I don't know. Late 2014 release plan for the movie that's still in production. Just put that one in there. Not too interesting. Lionsgate is picking up that Elijah Wood film called Cooties. It looks like some sort of infected type of film. School teacher Elijah Wood plays in a school, and there's some kind of outbreak, and turns kids into mindless cannibals. Run-of-the-mill type of infected shit.
Yeah.
Which I believe it's from the writer of Saw, I want to say, or the producer of Saw something.
Lyndon Bear, what the fuck is his name? I can't remember his name.
Yeah, that sounds about right. Fuck, I know what his name is too.
It's like
I can't remember.
It's like Lyndon something.
I don't know for sure if that's who it was. But he had something to do with Saw. I don't know if he was producing or what. And then XYZ Films partnered with Demorest Films and A24 are going to be releasing Kevin Smith's horror film Tusk. So I guess that's happening now. I think that film's already shot, correct?
Yep, it's in post-production.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so that should be out soon then. Justin Long's in it. I think it's the same distributor. A24 also distributed Spring Breakers or whatever. I know you're a fan of that, Jeremy.
Moodz is a fan of that film as well. Right, Moodz?
And it's supposed to hit
that is
like
a good
third
film.
quarter 2014, I guess.
Cool.
There hasn't been a whole lot of news this week. Nothing too important. That Kevin Smith stuff I thought was the coolest stuff right away. I got excited when I seen this. Then I realized it was something else. It's a film called Scarecrow is going to be released, and initially I thought it said Scarecrows, and I was like, damn, that would have been cool. But yeah, it premiered on Sci-Fi this past October, and it's being released by
After Dark.
I don't know who's releasing it. No, Sci-Fi's originally. Sci-Fi. I think Sci-Fi's releasing it under the Sci-Fi original line or whatever.
All right.
Killer Scarecrow movie. I haven't seen it, but Sci-Fi. After that, in fact, announced Hellhole. Are you guys familiar with this film?
No, I actually don't know anything about this.
Yep. Well, it comes out sometime in 2014. These are the releases I kind of I like to see. Like most of the time, is ones that are just weird films that I'm not familiar with. Because, I mean, as cool as like Phantasm II is being released, I've seen that movie so many times.
Mm-hmm.
You kind of like the ones that are a little lesser known.
Well, totally, and yeah, it's weird. I was trying to do a little bit of research on that one after I saw it announced, and I have no idea what that movie is. But that's what I want Scream Factory to do is find those type of really obscure films and release them because that's what they should be doing.
Yeah, it looks like some sort of like exploitation-y, maybe like women in prison type thing. I don't know. Just based on the
That's
cover.
what it, that's what it kind of seemed to be. So, but yeah, that's cool, man. I like those films.
Yep,
Different
awesome.
Scream Factory.
We can't go one full episode without talking about something Scream Factory related.
Of course.
That is
We got it in
true.
for the day. Popcorn. This film is
bonerific.
I've actually never seen it, but everybody, this is one that you always see on people's lists of like, hey, release this film, somebody. It's coming to Blu-ray, put out by, I believe, Synapse. Am I correct?
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
Which is so awesome. They do such an amazing job with the Blu-rays. They couldn't have picked a better title. My only beef with Synapse Films right now is that they've announced so many other films that they haven't released yet.
Prom Night 2, Prom Night, Suspiria. There's a couple other ones too.
Curtains, that was another one, but they've also had Countess Dracula like on the back burner forever. That movie was announced like a year and a half ago and it's been in ads and magazines and stuff, and they released the other Hammer pictures, Twins of Evil and stuff, but they haven't released that one yet. So where the fuck is that movie? Driving me nuts. But I mean, whatever. I'm not gonna complain about all these titles that they're announcing because they'll probably eventually come out. So
I do think I remember hearing that the Prom Night print was like really, really rough. So that's probably a reason why it's taking so long for Prom Night. But I'm not really I gotta be honest, like I don't really like Prom Night.
I'm very curious on the transfer that they do for that film because that movie is just really dark in general.
Yeah, like the disco scene and stuff.
Yeah, like I think it always kind of takes you out of the movie when you watch it. Like Prom Night, in my opinion, is not that great of a movie, anyways. But when you are watching like the older prints of it and stuff, the DVDs, it is really hard to watch actually. So maybe if they do a decent job with the transfer, it'll be a little more interesting to watch. But you know what? It's still Prom Night when it all comes down to it. So I thought it was an interesting choice for them to release, but a lot of people do like that movie. I'm just not like the biggest fan of it, but whatever.
I used to see it pop up on people's like top 10 slashers or like top 50 slashers of the 80s or something, and I used to see it all the time. And I always heard people talk about it like one of the regulars, like Sleepaway Camp and The Burning, and Prom Night always popped up. And I finally seen it. I was like, that was Prom Night, and it
gets a lot of praise because of Jamie Lee Curtis is in it. That's pretty much what it comes down to.
Yeah, but then in the past few years, I've seen a lot more people saying how they don't like it and how it's like one of the more overrated 80s horror films. And it's kind of weird because before I seen everybody liked it, seemed like.
Maybe it's because some of those people that were, putting Prom Night on their top 10 list eventually saw all the other better slashers from the 80s and it got bumped out and they started to realize that it's actually not that good compared to a lot of the other films that would essentially be making our top 10 lists, right?
Yep. So yeah, finally for the news this week, we have actually, I forgot one other thing. The Day of the Triffids. This is a new film being produced after a comet shower blinds most of the world's population. Those with sight must battle alien plants.
That sounds fucking stupid.
That movie sounds so retarded. I have to see this.
So I guess this was based on a book. And then there was a film in the 60s, I believe, or the 50s that also existed. And this is like another adaptation of that book. I believe it's being directed by one of the guys who directed one of the Harry Potter movies.
Oh, wow. That's just weird.
Yep. And giant plants, did you say?
Yes.
Oh, well, that's going to be fucking
alien
trash.
plants. They didn't say giant.
Whatever.
But
alien
you could assume they're probably going to be giant.
It's gonna be
maybe it's going to be on the same line of like Contamination 7. That movie is fun.
God.
It's so much fun. It's such a bad movie, but it
is really fun.
Killer fun. Killer plants. It just equals fun.
Yeah. Well,
I get worried with films like this though because do you think they just CGI the shit out of it and then it just? Ugh.
Yeah, one of my actually films that I think is a little underrated, dealing with killer plants, is The Ruins. I don't know
Yeah,
if any of
yeah,
you
I
guys have
saw that
seen
in
that.
theaters. I
I
actually
actually
haven't
really
watched that
like
in a
The
while.
Ruins.
That was pretty good. I like that movie.
Yeah.
I haven't watched it since it originally came out. I've actually picked up a copy since, but I haven't watched it. But
That movie was
I
pretty
remember,
gross. It had some gross scenes in that movie.
Oh yeah, good
I,
gore.
re-
Yeah.
that was the thing I remember about the movie was the gore. But I remember not really caring for the film that much. But I haven't seen it in years, so
The number
it's
one complaint I hear is people say just the idea that like they're killer plants. But if you get this idea, then you can it's fine.
yeah.
But piece of news, this Moodz actually sent me. I didn't even know about this. He was on top of it before I was. Um, Holliston Season 2 is getting a Blu-ray and DVD release. Finally. This is super exciting to me. I loved the first season of Holliston. It was only 6 episodes, but it was 6 very, very awesome episodes. I'm a huge Adam Green fan. Joe Lynch, that whole crew over there. Um, the Ortiz girl and Corey English, all those people were really cool. Great, fun people to
D.
watch.
Snyder,
Yeah,
D.
D.
so
Snyder,
Snyder.
Odorous
so awesome.
Youngus, all of them people. It's going to be hitting DVD and Blu-ray April 8th. You can pre-order now directly from Adam Green's website, I guess, Ariscope. And each copy will be autographed by, I believe, Adam Green and Joe Lynch, if you order from them. And it's only $25. It's pretty worth it, if you ask me. So yeah, what do
That's
you
so
guys think of
exciting.
that?
I'm so excited for it. I absolutely love season one, which you sent me actually, and thank you once again for that. But it's just I all I wanted was more episodes. In the first season.
Mm-hmm.
That's all I wanted. So I'm super excited for season two. Do you know how many episodes there actually is in the season?
Yes, I actually do know how many episodes there are. There are. I want to say there's. I had this wrote down. I don't have it anymore, but I want to say there's maybe 8 episodes and then an hour-long Christmas themed episode.
Uh,
There's also a found footage episode, a J horror episode, uh, a giant blob episode.
a
um,
found footage episode. Oh my god, that's gonna be so good.
yeah,
Funny.
yeah. So I mean, I also want to say that if anybody out there hasn't seen Holliston season 1, I highly recommend you do. I would really ask and wish that you guys would support this show because it really is some original, horror based programming, and I think that the whole uh, future of this show kind of rests on how season 2 sells. So if you guys want a season 3, go out and buy season 2. It's really is a good price, $25 for an autographed Blu-ray complete season. Second season. That's a pretty good deal if you ask me.
Yeah, it's pretty good.
Considering you spend 20 at conventions, that's a pretty okay deal.
Yeah.
Okie dokie. Anything else?
No, that's it for the news.
All right. So lots of interesting things coming out. That Kevin Smith film sounds like a lot of fun. So that should be fun to see what happens with that. I'm curious about that Jason Mewes segment. So
Yeah, I know, man. I hope he's in it too. He got to be in
yeah,
it.
yeah, he's fucking hilarious. So
Yeah, this is so intriguing.
I just
man.
want to see a special edition DVD of him directing it. Like, I just want to see him behind the scenes directing it. It got to be funny.
he's funny. The podcast I've talked about this before, but the podcast him and Kevin Smith do is fucking hilarious. So if you guys want to listen to another funny podcast, go listen to fucking Jay and Silent Bob Gets Old. It's funny as hell. But
They paid us to say that, by the way.
Yeah, they totally did. Thank you, Kevin Smith, for your loyalty check. You could send it to me. But anyway, we'll be hopping now into the question of the week, which is our top 5 horror sequels of all time. So yeah,
Of all time.
Moodz, do you want to mention some people's lists, or do you just want to hop into our list, or what's going to go on?
I actually have all of the list of the people who participated. If you want me to list them off,
Um, was there actually lots of people this week? I
Yeah.
can't even quite
like
remember.
6 people.
You know what, JP? You can totally list them off.
Okay, Emperor Corndog, really cool dude. I really, just met this guy recently from Moodz, actually, I believe. But yeah, anyway, he listed number 5, Phantasm II, number 4, Child's Play 2, number 3, Scream 2, number 2, Dawn of the Dead, and number 1, Evil Dead 2. Pretty solid list there.
Yeah, very similar to my list.
Scream 2, I would definitely X that one out. I think Scream 2 is kind of overrated as a sequel. But, obviously it's everybody's opinion. Movie Collector 666, he actually kind of took it upon himself to make it a top 6 instead of a top 5.
I know, I saw that. It was like a top sick. It's a top sick list.
Yeah. Number 6, Devil's Rejects. Number 5, TCM 2. Number 4, Stepfather 2. Number 3, Bride of Reanimator. Number 2, Psycho 2. And number 1, Dawn of the Dead.
Yeah, I was praising him for the Stepfather 2 on there. That's such a great, underrated sequel, actually. It doesn't get talked about as much as some of the other sequels, but it's a really solid movie.
Yeah. I've actually never seen it. It's been on my list to grab for a while. It's kind of expensive, though. It's hard to get, cheap.
Yeah, it's a Synapse release.
Yeah, Synapse.
That's why.
I was surprised to see both Bride of Reanimator and Stepfather 2 on there. It seemed like those ones were kind of, out of left field type of thinking.
You could get it used for $10 on Amazon.
Yeah, Bride of Reanimator. That's a fun film, though. I like it.
I've never seen it. Next up, we got Horror Gamer 776. He put number 5, Jaws 2. Number 4, Gremlins 2. Number 3, Evil Dead 2. Or not Evil Dead 2. Amityville 2. I apologize. Amityville 2. That's kind of a good choice. I would say that it's a film that's better. The sequel's better than the original, but overall, the film's not extra strong to me. Even though I think Amityville 2 is a little better than the first one.
Yeah, I personally love that movie. I think it's great.
Yeah. Number 2 is Evil Dead 2, and number 1 is Halloween 2. All pretty solid choices there. I was surprised to see Gremlins 2 on there.
Yeah, that is an interesting choice, actually. That's a movie that doesn't really get talked about a lot.
Yeah, I reviewed it a while ago, but actually watching it that time, I found it to be better in my memory. I seen it when I was a kid. I haven't seen it I didn't see it since, and then I watched it as an adult, and I was like, this seemed to be a lot more fun when I was a kid.
Yeah, I'm actually not that big of a fan of that movie.
Yeah, I love the first one, but
yeah, the first one's classic.
Next up, Mark 10 VP. Number 5, Silence of the Lambs. Number 4, Mimic 2. Number 3, Evil Dead 2. Number 2, Dawn of the Dead. And number 1, Aliens. You kind of see a pattern with Evil Dead 2 and Dawn of the Dead. It seems like those are the popular choices.
Yep. I kind of figured so.
Silence of the Lambs, I was unaware that was a sequel.
I guess it depends on how you look at it, because Manhunter came out at what? I don't know, 3-4 years before. I don't know if Silence of the Lambs is actually considered a sequel, but I don't know.
I mean, it could be. I haven't seen Manhunter, so I wouldn't know. But I mean, if some people considered it, then I guess technically it could be. Mimic 2. I thought that was a weird choice. I remember seeing that when I was younger, but
yeah, that's a different one. That's for sure.
And of course, Aliens. That's like everybody. That's a very popular choice too.
I was actually surprised that Aliens didn't come up on more lists.
Yeah. To
be honest, but
next up we have John Martin with number 5, Witchboard 2, number 4, Phantasm 2, number 3, Subspecies 2, number 2, Halloween 2, and number 1, Friday the 13th Part 2.
Interesting.
Yeah. Friday the 13th Part 2. Halloween 2, Phantasm 2, all great choices. Subspecies 2 I found to be kind of an odd one to put at number 3.
Yeah.
I mean, I do think Subspecies 2 is the best in the series, but top 5 of all time at number 3.
My favorite in the Subspecies series is actually Part 3.
Really?
Yeah, I love that movie. It's great.
And rounding off the list, we have Jonathan Matheny. Number 5, Hellraiser 2. Number 4, Maniac Cop 2. Number 3, Evil Dead 2. Number 2, Dawn of the Dead. And number 1, Aliens. That final 3 is like the you know, the Evil Dead 2, Dawn of the Dead, and Aliens is like the quintessential like top 3 average, choices that I would think would it exist.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't. Yeah, it definitely does not surprise me one bit. So
yeah, if you guys want to get into your, oh, by the way, I'll throw this out here really quickly. All 6 of these guys have been entered in my little giveaway that will actually be, I think this question of the week and then the next week's question of the week will also count. And then out of all those participants, I'll pick a winner that following week. Just throwing that out there.
I'll throw in a prize too.
sounds good.
All right, so my top 5 sequels: number 5, Maniac Cop 2; number 4, Devil's Rejects; number 3, Evil Dead 2; number 2, Halloween 2; and number 1, Child's Play 2.
Yep, I figured Child's Play 2 was going to be there.
Yep.
That makes a lot of sense. All right, JP, what's yours?
Mine is number 5, Hellraiser 2. Number 4, Psycho 2. Number 3, The Devil's Rejects. Number 2, Phantasm II. And number 1, Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2. Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2 is my... I don't know what it is about this film. I absolutely love it. It's probably my favorite sequel of all time. Obviously, if it's at number 1. But, this list will change from time to time. But as of right now, Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2 is definitely my number 1. And I was, having trouble because Child's Play 2 I really wanted to put on the list. And, Evil Dead 2 is another good choice. Halloween 2, Friday the 13th, Part 2. Just so many good... I could have made a top 20, honestly. I almost wanted to.
Yeah, I was having a hard time with this too, actually. But, when I really, really thought about it, it wasn't like overly that hard. I don't know. It is, but it isn't.
All right, so number 1, Dawn of the Dead. What's number 2 through 5?
Number 5 is Phantasm II. Number 4 is Psycho 2. Number 3 is The Devil's Rejects. Number 2 is Halloween 2. And, of course, number 1 is Dawn of the Dead. Not a fucking big surprise there. But, yeah.
No Hellraiser 2, huh?
That's it. I was just ready to say it. It was hard because Hellraiser 2... yeah, and the funny thing is I even considered Stepfather. I love Stepfather 2. There's a lot of really good sequels when you really think about it.
Yeah.
There's a lot of good ones. Like I was even trying to think of newer sequels and stuff, and like I loved Cold Prey 2.
Oh yeah.
Like it's a great sequel, right? Like that's probably something for, the newer sequels that it's one of the better ones. Better,
yeah.
Newer sequels. So.
Maniac Cop 2 and House 2 were also other ones I considered. Man, what's funny about what you said, how like it's kind of hard to pick sequels. The like cliched thing is, you always hear people say like how bad horror sequels are, but it turns out that a lot of the time I prefer the sequel over the original.
Yeah, it is kind of funny like that. There's just so many good part 2s out there, but they definitely have their moments when they're not though. I mean, in my opinion, like I don't think Freddy's Revenge is a good sequel to the original Nightmare on Elm Street. I don't think it is a good sequel because they just kind of changed. I mean, we've talked about this to death, but the rule changes a little bit and things. There's just certain elements of that film that don't
set up in the first film though.
Yeah, I know, but at the same time, it's just I think it's because it's so different, But I do respect what they did. It's just not one of my favorites. I don't hate Freddy's Revenge by any means. I don't.
Yeah.
But I just find it as a sequel to the original. I just find it's
I think Freddy's Revenge is a film that grows on people too. Like I think if you watch Freddy's Revenge, and kind of look at it in a different way and keep watching it, like kind of how I did, because I didn't like it at first either, but now it's one of my favorites in the series. Like I really like Freddy's Revenge.
I mean,
it's dark, man. It's creepy.
I've seen Freddy's Revenge like 30 times too, and like I always have the same opinion after the movie. You know, it never really seems to change, but
I
I
mean,
don't
I
know.
will say the worst thing about Freddy's Revenge to me is like the final act when like it's just weird. It doesn't make sense, and it's an odd. And I know the rules are different, but this is at a time when the rules weren't really established. They weren't really established until later. But even in the first Elm Street,
Well,
there is like plot holes where like Nancy sees shit and there's no indication that she's sleeping. Like when the tongue comes out of the phone.
yeah, totally. That's a good point. But you know, I mean, I guess to a point there is kind of rule sets, but yeah, there is definitely plot holes. But I mean, with the second one, I mean, there is definitely really cool scenes in that movie. I really like the opening scene with the bus.
Yeah, dude. And
It's
also
such a great scene.
the scene with Freddy when he's like, I've got the brain and shit, like that scene's awesome. I really
Yeah.
like that scene. Jeremy, what are your thoughts on Elm Street 2?
I haven't actually watched the Elm Street movies in a very, 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 very long time, like VHS era. So it's been a while
Oh
since I
man.
watched those movies. I have the Blu-ray set. We should do a show on them one time.
I agree. I have that set too, and I haven't watched them yet.
Yeah, we could talk the Elm Street series. There's a lot to talk about. A lot of
Yeah, you
memorable
can.
characters, a lot
Oh
of
man.
fun films. Power Glove.
Yep.
Go fuck yourself.
Now you're playing with power.
Ah, it's so
I,
disheartening. Every time I even think of Freddy's Dead, it just pisses me off.
a quick shout out, real quick, to this site that also hosts, 22 shots of moods and horror, the devilseyes.com. They actually just posted a list, last week, ranking Freddy's makeup from, all the films. And Freddy's Dead, I believe, was
Yeah.
the worst out of the original series, which isn't it? And if you kind of look at their list, which I agree with most of them, the makeup gets worse as the series goes on.
It
Of
really
course,
does, though.
it's like that in every series, though. I think
I
like as
disagree. Jason's mask looks like the best in like part 7, I think.
that's just the mask, though.
Well, I think his face looks best in part 7 too.
Yeah,
Yeah, but they fucked
it's that. It's
Chucky
not.
up.
Yeah, they did fuck Chucky up.
Speaking of fucking Chucky, we could have like a quick little moment here. Just
Yeah.
I finally watched Curse of Chucky.
Would it have made your top 10?
It was good. I don't know. I didn't really consider. I didn't even really think of it like that. But who knows? I would have to take a look at my list and stuff. But I was very impressed with the new Child's Play movie. It was really dark. It had a really great tone to the film. It was back to like that real evil kind of Chucky. Chucky wasn't over the top with his, with the comedy and stuff. It was just good. I love the setting. I love the whole
And then the
house
ending
setting.
ruined the whole movie.
I don't think it ruined
The
it.
fuck?
There's questions.
Yeah, I know the ending was kind of interesting. I gotta say, but it seem like that it had like three different endings to it though.
Yes, that's
Yeah.
the problem. There's questions all over the place with
Yeah,
that.
and so I
like,
was kind of going, what
era.
the fuck? I'm like, what is this, Lord of the Rings?
I don't even
I'm
know.
like,
I don't
what-
even get that reference. I've never seen the Lord of the Rings, but it was
But
fun.
I was a little confused, and I definitely didn't think that they needed to do the ending like that.
Well,
but-
Don Mancini says that all will be explained in part 7. Part 7.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I hope so. But I mean, overall, it was a good film. I thought Chucky looked pretty fucking cool.
What about
The
that
setting was
Russian
great.
roulette dinner table scene? That shit was dope, huh?
Yeah, it was awesome, man. Yeah, I don't know. It was a good film. I really liked the dark tone to it. It just really worked again. It was awesome.
It's such a step up from Seated Chucky that
Oh,
that alone
It's a
just
step up from
fucking makes
Bride
it.
too.
yeah, man.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but I mean, it's like Seated Chucky. Like you look
Oh,
at the
man.
franchise there, and there's no coming back from this. Especially
Stuff
if you're
comes
not,
out of my ass is better
I-
than See to Chucky.
I gotta admit though, the random, I guess lesbian scenes in the film.
Yeah.
dude. I don't get what's people's beef with that is. It's just part of the story. Like, why does it have to be because it's lesbians? Like, not. I know it's
No,
not like
it's
that. But I mean,
exactly how it happens. Like they're like, kind of running around, or they're like walking around or whatever, and then all of a sudden they just start like making out and shit. And like she's cheating on her husband with the fucking maid. I'm like, what?
yeah, but it's not random because they had a previous relationship. They lived together. The nanny. You know what I mean?
I don't want to
guess.
compare it. Have you seen Side Effects Moods?
Uh,
The
I don't know.
Stronenberg film?
No, I don't think I have actually.
Should check that movie out. It's good.
But
I
I don't
don't
know.
know.
Like I didn't have a big problem with it. I just thought it was like the way that they started making out. I thought that was like just such an interesting. Like it just
Yeah.
all of a sudden just happened. I was like, what?
Well, I know that scene. Like Tat like hated that scene or something. He said it was like pointless or
Ted
something.
hates everything.
But I didn't see the problem with it. It was just like it was a story element. It would be the same as if the dad was cheating on the mom with the
But it did like
babysitter.
With Blonde the pool boy.
you kind of needed it though too because
Yeah.
it sets up where the husband's it's put the nanny cam in the doll and stuff.
Yeah.
And shit, I thought that was actually pretty cool. And he's like, "Oh,
Yeah.
I'm gonna check the nanny cam." I thought that was actually a really cool element to it. And then when he's checking the footage and fucking Chucky's like coming at him, it was pretty cool, man. I thought it was neat.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun.
How the
But
fuck did we get on Child's Play?
I don't know.
We're talking about how Chucky cursed Seed of Chucky. Chucky looked like shit.
Yeah.
And then, but I just wanted to mention because I'd watched the movie and I know you guys have seen it and everyone was dying to hear my opinions on it. But yeah, I really enjoyed it. That's what it comes down to.
I figured you would.
I'm really looking forward to the sequel. I got to admit though, I have to kind of.
I hope it gets made.
Here.
You would think there would be no reason for it to not be made because there's no way it didn't make money. But
Yeah, I think it made
then
money.
again, Friday the 13th, the remake made like a shit ton of money.
I have to say, man, Curse of Chucky is probably one of the best direct-to-video sequels I've seen in a long time.
For sure.
How did that movie not get a theatrical release, man?
It could have
how
pulled
does-
off a theatrical release,
How
but
did Seed not get... Fucking Seed gets a theatrical
well,
release
that's
and
the
that doesn't.
reason that Curse
But Seed-
didn't get a theatrical release is probably because of Seed.
But didn't Seed of Chucky actually make money though?
No, I don't think. I think it. I mean, in the long run, it probably made money, but I think it bombed.
Wow. Yeah, because I got to say,
I wonder why.
it was kind of funny because I was reading, or wasn't reading. After I finished watching Curse of Chucky, I was thinking to myself, I'm like, man, that was a really good direct-to-video sequel. And I started thinking to myself, and I'm like, one of the better direct-to-video sequels that I've seen in a long time was Wrong Turn 2. And then no shit, I'm on the internet screwing around, and I'm reading this article, and it says, Curse of Chucky, best sequel, direct-to-video sequel since Wrong Turn 2. That's so fucking weird. Like, I just thought it like 2 minutes before. But yeah, I just, overall, fun film, man. I hope
Man, I gotta watch these Wrong Turn movies, man.
I really hope that they don't
We
go
should do a show on them.
too silly,
Yeah.
because the end of Curse of Chucky, it kind of gets a little silly, I hope they don't continue down that road for the sequel if they make the sequel, and it kind of turns into like a bride kind of slash
Yeah,
Seed.
you can just feel it maybe going that way. Like,
Yeah,
like it's too hard not to like put Chucky right out in front and be like, say something funny, Chucky. Come on.
I know. I am a little tad. I will admit I'm a little worried, but who knows?
The
I guess we'll
best
just have to
part
wait and
of
see.
any Child's Play film is when Chucky flips out. Like, I
No,
think of
the best part of any Child's Play film is the fucking elevator scene from Child's Play 1.
I don't think so at all. But
Yeah, I find fucking scene cracks my ass up every fucking time.
I think the best scene of Child's Play 1 is when Andy's mom's about to throw him in the fireplace and he flips out and he's like, "You fucking slut, you cunt bitch." And he's like, just starts like flipping out. Like when Chucky gets pissed off and starts flipping, dude, like I think that's the best. That's like when he's
Actually,
at his best.
One of the parts in the Child's Play franchise that made me laugh the hardest is when he's trying to play hide the soul with the little black boy in part 3.
And
Yeah.
he's like, Chucky's gonna be a bro.
No, and he's no, but the kid's hiding on him, and he's starting to get really pissed off because this kid is playing fucking hide and seek with him, and he's like, "Ollie,
Come on, Charles.
and he's like, "Get out here, you little son of a bitch!"
Charles, you said a bad word.
He's just fucking so mad with
Yeah.
this kid, man.
But
I
that's when
love
he
his
was.
tone.
That wasn't like overly like comedic. It was just. It was
the
fucking
delivery.
Chucky, dude.
It's the
Yeah.
fucking delivery on it, man. It's just so perfectly executed. It's just
It's dark.
brilliant.
It's very
Yeah.
dark. Like it's not like him like, fucking saying that he's made of rubber when Tiffany asks him if he has a rubber.
Yeah, that's got to be the funniest line out of any movie, though. Like seriously,
He's like,
rubber,
"Tiff,
rubber.
I'm made of rubber."
I'm all rubber. Fucking so funny, man.
Speaking, since you went on your little, sidestep tangent thing, I just kind of wanted to mention that I actually finished Crystal Lake Memories. I didn't get to the bonus disc, but I did finish the, feature. And man, that I really, really did enjoy it. But I found when I was watching Freddy versus Jason, that segment, I found it like really frustrating because like they had like ideas and like things were going like this way and that way, and I'm like, I just wanted it to be a certain way, and I'm like, well, guys, how do you not know that it should be like this? And like it was like frustrating to watch.
Definitely check out the bonus disc though. The interviews, the bonus disc is really entertaining, man. Like 4 hours, like extended stuff. It's really worth your time.
I thought that when they talked about, I like when they talked about like part 8, 9, 10, and the remake, or that I was really frustrated on watching the remake part too.
Mm-hmm.
But I still think Jason Goes to Hell is like, I don't know, man. There's just like if you take out the like weird fucking sadomasochist scene thing, I think that movie's fucking solid.
See, you have the same opinion. You have your same opinion on that film that I have. Fucking now I can't remember. I'll think of it.
Okay.
I'll think of it. Like I have a movie that I like a lot that everyone shits on for some reason, but it'll come to me. The Strangers. That's the one.
The Strangers.
I like The Strangers.
People shit on it a lot, so
I didn't like completely hate that film. I wasn't the hugest fan, but I find home invasion films are very, very hit and miss with me, though.
They're hard to do, right?
That's just me. That's yeah, I think it is. It's a kind of a sub genre of horror that is like.
Well,
it is very hard to execute properly. I think it's because it's
to me, I think the problem is that there's plenty of opportunities for tons of plot holes when you're dealing with home invasion, and I think that like you have to write your way out of a lot of them.
I think one of the biggest problems with home invasion films is the really shitty screenplays that are written for the dialogue and stuff. You need interesting dialogue, because if you're going to have a movie that takes place all in one setting, just in a house or whatever, you're going to need some interesting dialogue, and you don't need fucking garbage fucking bullshit dialogue.
You should check out In Their
Lane.
You should check out In Their Skin. It's an IFC Midnight film. It's all right. It's an all right home invasion film.
Yeah, that was a bad sell. It's like you should check it out. It's all right.
Well, we're talking about how all home invasion movies are shit.
Well, I'm not saying that they're all shit. There is a few that I really do like. Like I love. I haven't seen it yet, but I really like the movie, the French film Them. I think it's actually one of the best ones I've personally ever seen. I think it's one of the best ones. But
I think as of right now, I think Your Next is my probably favorite home invasion film.
Yeah, Inside is really good. That has some of the best score I've ever seen in any film.
Yeah, that movie's just fucking mean-spirited, man.
Yeah, it's brutal.
Ooh. It is no, I think Mother's Day is like the best home invasion film that I've seen, I think.
You should check out Inside.
Awesome. I'm talking about the remake, of course.
Inside is really good.
Mother's Day, is pretty much a remake in name, but it's a good film. I really do like that.
Yeah. So yeah, Jason Goes to Hell. I like it.
So I guess I might as well get into the question of the week.
Sure.
Since we answered a question like
is this Moodz Swingz too, or just a question?
It's considered Moodz Swingz.
This is just part of Moodz Swingz. I'm not going to go into any rants this week. I kept it pretty cool with with my rants, but I will be back next week with a couple though. So the question of the week, which is kind of an obvious question, considering we're going to be talking about the Phantasm franchise here momentarily. So the question is very, very simple, but kind of hard. Name your top 5 horror franchises. Your personal favorite. Top 5 horror franchises.
Sweet.
So very, very interesting, because I've talked to a lot of people, and of course you have the Child's Plays, and you have all the big ones, but there is a lot of other franchises out there. Like I made a list about 4 or 5 days ago of franchises, and a franchise is basically anything that has a 4th film. not a trilogy.
I was gonna ask you to specify.
Yeah.
What you mean.
So Phantasm and Psycho can be considered franchises because they have a fourth film.
Now, what if there is, say, 3 films and a remake?
Well, it's kind of cheating, but I guess that kind of works. But I don't know if that would even be someone's in their list anyways. I don't know. But there's a million franchises out there. Like I was even thinking about this. Like there's you can even have like, oh man, like Full Moon is starting out with all these crazy franchises now. Like I guess Ginger Dead Man even was one now because they have like, there's like a 4th film in that series. I guess kind of Ginger Dead Man versus Evil Bung, I guess can be considered. But I was thinking like the Killjoy films. There's 4 of those. Like that's a brand. That's like a newer franchise.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if somebody has the Children of the Corn or the Hellraiser franchise on their list, it's gonna blow my mind. Just saying.
Yeah, well, actually, it was another major franchise that I would be surprised to see on someone's list too would be The Howling. Because I mean, everybody knows my opinions on the first Howling. I personally fucking love that movie. I know a lot of people don't, but I love it. The second movie is one of the worst sequels, but one of the best sequels ever.
It is the worst best sequel with the best ending credits of all time.
Yeah, dude, that movie is so entertainingly awesome.
Bad.
It's just
so bad.
movie.
I saw that movie in a full theater with like 500 people. It had to be the funniest thing I've ever seen in my life. Especially at the ending credit scenes, people were like pissing in their pants. People who've never seen it before. It's so bad.
Yeah.
Dude, there's so many franchises. Like Pumpkinhead is a franchise.
Yeah.
Isn't that crazy that happened?
I have like 30 different franchises listed or something like that. It's actually quite crazy. Like, everything from the Leprechaun series to Subspecies.
Puppet Master.
There is 4 subspecies. Almost like 5 in. Like,
so only 3 Killjoys?
No, there's
4. Goes to hell, dog.
Oh, that's right.
But yeah, there's just fucking tons, man. There really is lots, and I'm kind of interested. I mean, you have all the big ones: Nightmare on Elm Street, Friday, Chucky, I don't know, Halloween, shit like
Saw.
that. But yeah, Saw. I would be surprised to see Saw on people's top 5 lists though too. I think.
So yeah, have fun with it, and also remember that people who answer the question will be entered to win a little prize.
That is right.
For sure. So, is that it?
That is it for Moodz Swingz. Just a question of the week.
Okie dokie. So, gonna hop into now the discussion of the week. We'll be talking about the Phantasm series from start to finish. So,
I want to say really quickly, just as saying right away, we're probably going to be spoiling these films because in order to talk about part 3, you're going to have to spoil the ending of part 2 and so on and so on. So when we're doing these we try to keep it relatively spoiler free when we're talking about other films, but in these franchise shows we'll probably be spoiling them, so just let you guys know ahead of time.
Yep.
Yeah, this is a tough series to talk about without having spoilers, I think.
Yeah.
All right, so I have to say, when I was watching, especially the first film, my first time watching it, I was fucking confused as fuck as what the hell was fucking going on until I, read what, the synopsis on the back of the cover, and it started to make more sense, but...
Okay, so if you guys, I don't know if you guys know this, but this is Jeremy's first time with the series, which I thought was super cool and one of the main reasons I wanted to do this show. But I guess the first film came out in 1979. Don Coscarelli, who was coming off of, I believe, directing comedies or something. He directed a film called Kenny and Company, which it shows a trailer to that on like every Phantasm release, and it always just like makes me laugh because it looks ridiculous.
I know, it looks so bad.
It does. It really does look bad. So yeah, Don Coscarelli. He directs Phantasm. Whew, man, where do we begin with Phantasm? I guess with,
you can give a general plot of it.
All right, plot is pretty much about this kid who is pretty much down on his luck. Every shitty thing's happening to him. All his family is dying, and all he has left is his brother.
His
And
brother's named Jody.
his
The little
brother's
kid name is Mike. He's
Mike.
13, I believe.
So Mike's not allowed to the funeral of, was it his brother, right?
It was their friend.
Their friend. So he wasn't allowed to this funeral. So after, of course, he was spying on this funeral, and after everybody leaves, he noticed this tall man. That's what his name, tall man.
Played by Angus Scrim.
Pick up this casket and put it in the back of this hearse with
By himself.
So he automatically thinks, something's going up. This old guy is picking up this coffin and putting it in the back of this hearse. And as the film goes on, we learn...
This old guy back in 1979. This guy's still alive.
I know, that's why when we talk about if there should be a Phantasm V, I'll talk about that.
Yeah.
But, so then as the film goes on, we notice this guy's actually an alien from this planet, and he summons all these people from the cemetery as his minions, and he shrinks them down into little people, and he makes them do his doings of fucking people up and stuff like that. So I think that's pretty much the synopsis, right?
Yeah, the main idea behind the film is you have a brother and brother relationship. The older brother is kind of distanced himself from the younger brother. The younger brother feels upset with that. They also have a friend named Reggie, who is, in my opinion, right up there with Bruce Campbell for one of the badasses in the films. The cool fucking character, man. He's just so cool, and he pulls his he has a bald spot with a ponytail, and
wasn't he in Bloody Bible Camp,
off, dude?
Moodz, wasn't he in Bloody Bible Camp?
Yeah, I think he was actually. He was in the movie Cemetery Gates. He was
also in Wishmaster and a little cameo and stuff. The three of the the first Phantasm, it's three of them. The tall man is this mortician guy who works at runs the funeral home and stuff. And he had, like Jeremy said, he has these minions, these little dwarf creatures, which look like Jawas or whatever.
Yeah, they wear the little brown capes and everything.
They're basically, I think what they might have been at one time was like a human. They were all kind of shrunk down and stuff.
They were the corpse. They were the corpse, the dead corpse from the funeral home. He was digging them up and injecting them with this fluid that we learned in the second film that makes them turn into this thing.
The one guy, their one friend who is with the lady in lavender at the beginning of the film, I believe he is one of the. At one point in the film, they show the little dwarf as his face or something. So
he looks like whatever the hell his name is, and then
so Phantasm. We have the tall man stealing bodies and turning them into dwarf creatures, which he sends back to his planet,
which is such an interesting plot because you never know where exactly the tall man is from or what the planet is,
and you can tell this is low budget because they couldn't even fucking afford a door. They just could afford two metal sphere posts.
Made it more interesting, actually. You know what I mean?
And they never explain why he's sending back these little minions to this land and stuff. What I guess that foreign land is using them for. It's very intriguing. It's just a very weird plot. And we do
actually learn that the reason he shrinks them down is because of the gravity or something on that planet. I'm pretty sure it's mentioned at some time.
Yeah. But there's no explanation for what they're being used for on this planet and stuff. And maybe it's just to repopulate it. I don't know. I guess you could pretty much just kind of come up with your own ideas.
Now, the tall man is very mysterious, for one. We like we're saying, it's very dreamlike. It's very we really don't know what he's up to.
I don't think you see him enough.
But when you do see him, he has this presence. And it just honestly it scared me as a kid. It was just,
oh man, every time Angus Scrim is one of the coolest fucking badasses in a film. He's so creepy, man.
His dialogue, it's just he nails it. From boy, and he's you think when you die you go to him. you come to us or something, like he has like the best, it's like poetry almost.
His delivery is absolutely amazing. One of my favorite scenes in Phantasm is the scene where Mikey's across the street and he's looking at Reggie. Reggie's doing something in the back of his ice cream truck.
Cream truck.
And the tall man's
stuff.
walking by and he stops.
Yeah, and looks at him.
And he just turns his head real fucking slow, right to Mikey. And he's like staring at him, then he starts sniffing and shit. But like that fucking scene is just terrifying, man.
Yeah.
It's so well shot and done. Like, oh dude, like that moment, the tall man is not to be fucked with, man.
It's badass.
So of course nobody kind of believes Mike. He's seeing these things, he's spying on the tall man, he's, rolling up to the, mausoleums and stuff, and he's scoping it out, and he's seeing all these things, and nobody really believes him. There's also a weird scene with a fortune teller that kind of comes out of nowhere, which
it kind of reminded me of the scene from Mallrats. I mean, I've seen Mallrats with the three nipple lady.
That scene is weird, actually. That scene is kind of out of place.
Now, Jeremy talked about how this film had a low budget and stuff. This is like straight up like guerrilla filmmaking. I've heard other people say this in the past. It's just like they just did what it's really like filmmaking at its like heart. It's just pulling shit off out of nowhere and all
the way shit. It basically took them a year and a half to make the movie. They filmed on the weekends only. Don Coscarelli filmed just on the weekends, so that took him so long. But yeah, that's a hard way of making a movie.
You have we haven't even mentioned the spheres. The spheres are character. We'll talk about this more in the sequels, but to me, Don Coscarelli has a way of taking items and things and creating characters out of them, like the quad barrel shotgun. That's almost a character by itself. The car is like a character, the car you always see, and the spears and just all these different things. Like he creates characters out of items and stuff. And there's so much mythology of the Phantasm. There's so much places to explore that we still haven't explored. Like there's just little things like yellow blood and why does the tall man's like fingers turn into some kind of weird insect thingy thing?
I think the yellow blood is basically because of that's the shit that's being injected into them, making them what they are. I think that's why they have that, right? So
yeah, it is. But that's cool. It looks really cool, actually. Like you would think like, oh, yellow blood, but this yellow blood looks really neat. I like it.
Yeah, it looks kind of thick and sticky.
Yeah. Ooh, it's all sticky.
Gross.
And, the spheres are got to be one of the coolest fucking original thoughts in like a horror film ever.
Yeah. I was watching the special features on Phantasm after. The very first scene or the very first kill by a sphere in Phantasm.
That shit is brutal, man.
Yeah, dude, it's so bloody, man. And they explain like how they did it and stuff. It's actually really easy. They just basically had a tube running down his arm. But
did you see when it like starts digging into the bridge of his nose? Like it digs into it. It looks real.
But the interesting thing I thought about that scene they were talking about after was the fact that when they submitted the movie to the to the rating board, they obviously it came back and it got an X rating because of that scene. They said it was way too bloody and shit like that. And so they basically just, I think they did like a recut or something like that. And then they resubmitted it and they were just kind of fucking around with the rating board. And they basically didn't really do anything.
No, but of course didn't. They mentioned that in the commentary. They just sent it back. They said they cut out something, but they sent it back and it didn't fool them at all.
No. And then they ended up not even cutting anything out of the movie, and the movie was released as is, right?
Problem with the MPAA.
So weird. So they ended
talk
up
about that for hours.
Yeah, ended up not even cutting anything, which is a good thing because
that's what I'm writing my thesis on. That fucking system's so fucking bad.
Yeah, you just watch that movie. This film is not yet rated or whatever it's called. That'll just enlighten everybody right there.
Yep.
So yeah, I mean, one of the things that I like most about the first Phantasm film is Mike. Mike is this 13-year-old kid, and he's able to do these things. He's treated more like an adult than he is a kid, which when you're a kid, that's all you kind of want. And kids are smarter than people give them credit for, man. When I was a kid, I was pretty capable of doing things. and you know, he's able to, you know, drive the car, fucking grab,
Yeah,
like he
that
gets a
cracked my
gun and
ass up.
shit.
That
He,
cracked
you
my
know,
ass up.
they you know, trust him with like the things he's able to do. Like he gave, like the brother gives him the gun, and like
They don't really have a lot of choice, though. I mean, Mike is treated like an adult because his parents are gone. You know, and I think that, you know, his older brother doesn't really have much choice but to treat him, you know, a little differently. You know, he doesn't want to play daddy to him, so why not treat him like an adult? And, you know,
well, I think it
someone of
comes
his own
from
age.
the idea that Mike is closer to, you know, like being a kid than a parent is, and he kind of he knows how capable his brother is. He knows what he can do and what he can't do, and he trusts him with you know, things. And you know, Reggie's just cool.
I'm meeting him in August. Now I'm excited. Now that I watch these movies.
But I always, as a kid watching Phantasm, I always was like, yeah, that, you know, like that they're like fucking not treating this kid like a kid.
No. But like I said, though, I think it has everything to do with the fact that, you know, once your parents are gone and you're in that type of situation, you're not really a kid anymore. You have no choice but to grow up, right?
Yep.
So, I mean, the kid, there's abandonment, you know, kind of undertone, not even undertones. It's right in your face though. But Mike is very scared that his brother's going to leave too, right? So
It's definitely a subplot.
yeah,
That's why he
so
goes to the fortune teller lady.
yeah,
He just keeps thinking that his brother's gonna abandon him,
hmm
um, which, you know, isn't really the case. I think we know that. Um, Now that there, you know, that, but back to like the lady in lavender, like that's just another phantasm mythology thing. Uh, that like weird shot when it turns into the tall man. That shit's creepy, man. You know, the cemetery scene at the beginning,
Yeah. When
set
he's
scene.
fucking her and then his face turns from this chick to the uh, old man.
and that was totally just. I thought that was an interesting scene because they didn't even tell Angus Scrimm that they were doing that.
Yeah,
Because I remember in the special features that he was like watching the movie after, and he's like, "Oh, I can change forms like that.
yeah.
Awesome."
And the actually the nude lady is a nude body double also.
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah,
Um,
that sex scene in the cemetery is just so classy.
oh yeah,
I
man,
always like
right in the
that scene, man.
cemetery.
It's just such a
Jeez.
creepy area to be boning somebody. It's hilarious.
Speaking of creepy areas, how about the set designs in the, you know, uh, mausoleums and stuff?
Oh,
That's an actual set. They built that.
really? Wow.
Yeah, I found that out in the commentary.
Wow, that mausoleum looks quite authentic. It looks really good.
I could have sworn it was. Like, I hope I'm not mistaken, but like when they said that, I was like, really? Like, because
It's
I
actually
was
quite
almost certain that
interesting.
it was.
You think it would be cheaper to use a real mausoleum, rent it out, and film in there than it would be to fucking build one? Like,
Yeah, I
man.
guess they built like a few halls, and that was it. Or, I
Hmm.
know they I also, I gotta mention that these films run together really easy. So sometimes I might be like, I'm not exactly sure which one I was talking about. You know, which one
Yeah.
was which, while I'm talking.
You know, I think Phantasm has one of the coolest. I mean, I always talk about atmosphere in films, but does Phantasm not have one of the craziest atmospheres throughout the whole film? Like
It absolutely does.
it has such an interesting feel to the movie because I think it's because the movie's so mysterious in itself, like the tall man and where he's from and what exactly he's doing, but it's all pretty much shot in at nighttime and with the exception of a few scenes and stuff, but it just really works so well. And you know, in my opinion, I think the score for Phantasm is one of the best scores ever written
It's
Yep.
definitely in my
for a
top
movie.
five.
It is absolutely so fucking genuinely creepy and
Yeah,
works
it's
so
good.
well.
And
The atmosphere that he created, and you know, for the film, and then just to have that score come in, perfect timing in the films too. Great sound effects, and
the
that's another thing I
score,
really noticed.
the score to me feels post-apocalyptic, end of the worldy. It feels like a road horror score. It feels like
Oh,
just an eerie atmospheric score,
totally.
like foggy, cold nighttime and shit. You could feel that in the score.
Yeah, yeah. It's absolutely amazing. One thing I really love about Phantasm, something that I notice a lot, is the use of sound effects in the movie. The sound effects are just executed, and they're just perfectly used in that movie.
I
I know
think
it's
the
something.
bug.
I think a lot of people don't really notice things like that, but I mean, as you know, I have a background in it, right? So I notice sound effects and shit. But the sound in that movie is awesome, really well done. So
Also, I want to mention, I don't know if you guys have noticed this, but this just also it goes to show like how Coscarelli doesn't, he thinks about things and he doesn't just make a movie, like he thinks about scenes and the way, scenes are going to be and what's going to be there. There's a big giant poster in Mike's room, and the poster is a shot of the like it's a point of view from the moon to the earth. And I think that's, sort of like a metaphor for the
Oh
tall man.
man, what are you, a fucking film analyzer now, man? Look at you, big boy. Fucking
I've actually
sort of.
I've seen that pointed out by somebody else
Oh
before, but I
really?
just thought I would.
That wasn't your original idea.
No,
Oh man,
I
that's a
wish
sh
I could take credit for that, but I don't know if you guys have noticed that. But I thought it was really cool. It's a giant poster of the size
yeah,
of like one of his walls.
yeah.
man. He pulled a fucking Stanley Kubrick on that one.
Isn't it? It's at the begin or the end of the first Phantasm film where they actually give the meaning, or is it the beginning of the film of Phantasm?
The meaning of
The word phantasm, like it says, the delusion of a
it was the
distorted
first
mind,
film, I think.
a phantom, a spirit, a ghost. I think that's really cool that they actually give you kind of basic meaning of the word phantasm. It kind of helps you, kind of understand what's
So
what you're
Jeremy,
seeing on that screen.
as a whole, Phantasm One.
It's good. I liked it, but I don't see what all the hype is about the movie.
I knew it. I had.
In my personal opinion, I think Phantasm is one of the best horror films ever made.
Really?
Yeah.
I agree.
I think it's executed on so many levels so perfectly. Not only because I think the casting is brilliant. I think Angus Scrimm is just an amazing. His character's so awesome. But Mike, the little kid, like he was a child actor, right? I think his timing.
I heard that
His
kid's
time.
kind of a douchebag now. By the way, just
Well,
saying.
whatever. It doesn't matter. His performance on the screen is actually really well done. Like he's very genuine.
And his dedication to be the same character in all four films. I got to give him props to
He
that
wasn't in
too.
the third film.
He wasn't in the
wasn't.
third film.
He wasn't in the
The
second.
second film. It was the second film.
Second.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
apologize.
I can't remember the whole story with why he wasn't, but
Well, I'll talk about that when we get to it.
anyways, but yeah, but the characters in that movie, everyone, like Reggie, everybody in that movie is just so brilliant. But as a whole, I think it's just executed so perfectly because I love the mystery of it. You don't need to know all this background on the tall man, and you don't need to know exactly what these little minions are getting shipped off into like realm 3 for and stuff, and it's just executed perfectly.
I will actually say that this film has genuine scares in it. And, especially if you're a kid or younger, this film will scare the hell out of you, most likely. I think that a lot of it is still effective today at just being genuinely creepy. Like watching it, the tall man still kind of gets under my skin and creeps me out in certain moments.
I honestly, as a kid, I always found the scene where the tall man picks up the casket by himself to be so fucked up and scary.
Yeah, right.
It is so.
It's just like whoa, because
because
that's wrong. That's
you look
just
at that. You look at that scene and you go, that can't happen.
yeah.
That's totally wrong. But it's like such a simple way of scare. Like it's just such an amazing thing that Coscarelli put into the film because it just works so well. I don't know. I just think it's such a brilliant scene, man. Because you look at it and you go, there's so much wrong with that. It's not a jump scare. It has nothing to do with blood or gore. It's just a visual that's executed so perfectly.
Yeah, it's just the idea of it. It's like you do the simple math in your head. You're like, okay, a casket that weighs a lot. They need like 6-7 people to carry it. This guy is tall and skinny, and he just picked up a casket and put it in a hearse. And also he's in the middle of the like a cemetery by himself and nobody's watching. Like he did that like at that time so nobody would see him do that. There's something wrong with this picture. And you're you're in Mike's position. Like you're watching him do that, like, and that's a jolt of fear sent right to your heart.
Yeah.
And how about one of my favorite scenes in the original Phantasm is when he wrecks the bike. It's just always so funny to me when he's driving through the cemetery on his motorcycle and he just fucking wrecks it.
Well, it's a fucking tall man like throws him off the bike,
Yeah,
or whatever.
just
But it's
mind
just like,
powers.
yeah, it's a great scene.
Yeah.
So I would say, you talked a bit about how this film doesn't explain a lot and stuff like that. I've heard this film, very well compared to the likes of Suspiria, in the idea that it's a film that isn't going to work for everybody, and it's a film that is very mysterious, very odd, ambiguous. And
it's because a lot of movies like Suspiria and Phantasm that have so much mystery behind them, a lot of people don't realize, but they really do like to watch movies that are spoon-fed to them. They don't really like to think about what's going on and have
what's going on.
That's the thing, and I think that's honestly one of the reasons why people don't like Suspiria for what it is. I mean, a lot of people will say they don't like the movie, but visually it's amazing and stuff. I'm like, yeah, okay, but it's probably has a lot to do with the fact you have to think about that movie. Same with this one. And you can't just watch and be like, yep. You know what I'm saying? It's not like a slasher film. You don't need to look into it too much. But this one, it has so much mystery to it, man. But I know a lot of times, like when I'm watching a film, sometimes I like to know things. There's certain things that I do like to know. This one, for some weird reason, I don't need to know anything.
Yeah, it's almost
well.
to where like it's almost to where it's like I don't even want to know certain things.
Yeah. Actually, it's a good point. It's a very good point because, say if they made a fifth Phantasm film and all of a sudden it was kind of like it's not a prequel, but it fucking explains everything. Would that be a good sequel?
No,
I think
the cool thing about the Phantasm films is as it goes on, we learn more, but it's only a little more each time.
And it's only certain little things. It totally is. Like the way
it almost seems like it's picked at random what we get to know a little bit more of. You know what I mean?
I think it's brilliant what Coscarelli did with writing, or with the stories in these films and not letting the viewer know things that you don't really need to know. But I think it's just perfect the way he did it. So,
and I also think that Coscarelli doesn't really know a lot of the things too. I think that he has ideas about everything, but
he totally has no idea what he just made. You know what I'm saying? There's a lot of questions. He totally some of the sequences in the films were based on dreams that he had. They don't really even, but they work though. That's the odd thing about this movie.
Dreamlike, man. It just has it's almost like a nightmare on film at certain times. And much like Suspiria, it's very visual and atmospheric. I think that's one of the strongest things about Phantasm is just the atmosphere. You can talk about it for days.
You really can, and those are three things that make a movie so much more enjoyable for me. Is atmosphere and fucking with a really good score, and a really awesome visual to a film. Those are the three things that work so well for me, and that's why Suspiria and Phantasm are two of my favorite movies of all time because they have the same elements that I love to see in a film, And I guess also the mystery behind it too is really cool. So
now I have a theory, Jeremy, and I think that this film will become stronger the more times you see it.
I watched it one time. Cut me a break here, man. It will change after I watch it again.
Like you said, he was a little confused, which is perfectly natural. I still pick up on new things when I watch the whole series.
Yeah, I remember watching Phantasm for the first time. I think I was probably back in the early 90s, actually. I wasn't too old, but I was confused as fucking hell, too. I was like, what am I watching? But I knew I loved the fucking music and the visuals, so.
Well, initially, the one, kind of beef I had with Phantasm was the ending. But after thinking about it a little bit more...
Yeah, that ending fucked with my mind.
I think
that was the problem with what made me so confused.
Well, okay,
I don't
so
think
the
ending was supposed to make sense, though.
Well, it actually does, though. The ending is that it was all a dream.
Are you sure about that, though?
But
yeah, but
no,
I don't...
Check it out. it once Phantasm 2 starts up, it was no longer a dream. But if you take Phantasm 1 as a standalone film, it was all a dream. And initially I don't like that, but after thinking about it and thinking about how certain scenes in the film, there's just like if you go by the film scene by scene, um, it is very dreamlike, and it makes sense that it was all a dream because you're getting these random images and these random things thrown at you, and it's very dreamlike. It's what happens in a dream. It's not one linear story. It's these random images of things. So I think the ending does work in the original Phantasm as it being all a dream. Normally I hate that type of ending, but it makes sense in this one.
Yeah, I don't know.
Okay.
It's like it totally, because once Phantasm 2 starts, it totally basically shows you right away it's not a fucking dream.
Well, even Coscarelli says in the commentary to the original Phantasm, I believe he says some people were torn on the "it was all a dream" ending. So
but the weird thing is, if it was all a dream, if the whole movie was a dream, why was Jody dead though?
Because he died in a car
because
accident.
He died in a car crash during and Mike kind of dreamed up this whole like thing.
So that's like,
happen.
Okay, so that's exactly what they're doing then. Okay. Yeah, I mean that's kind of what I figured was going on, but it's just, yeah, I understand like the whole dream thing is kind of a little off-putting, but I never really think about Phantasm as a dream because of part 2. Yeah,
which you don't need to after part. Yeah, watching part 2, it's just kind of looking at it in its own film. I do think that if they would have never made another film, that "it was all a dream" would kind of work in that scenario of, how the whole film feels like a series of random images and ideas thrown at you that are very dreamlike.
Yeah.
So, Phantasm II from the year 1988.
The Phantasm II takes place
right. Wait, first of all, actually, sorry, I moved ahead too fast. What would you rate Phantasm 1?
What would I rate Phantasm? Probably like 9.5 out of 10.
I'd probably give it an 8.5.
What? Holy shit!
I told you, it's not like I hated the movie or nothing.
I gave Phantasm an 8. I feel like I'm like lowballing it or something. Like
8 out of 10. Oh god, the score alone gets a 9. Fuck. Oh, that's an interesting. I thought you totally would have had that rated higher.
No, and there's I don't know, man. I think the reason
that movie just has all the elements that I love in a horror film. I think that's what it is. So I just cannot give it.
It does to me too, but I think like an 8 is still a very strong rating. You know what I mean? But
I think it's a pussy rating.
I think that Phantasm II
can give him a little reamer.
Is a much stronger film in terms of pure excitement and entertainment. Like Phantasm 1 is very awesome and it works really well, but I just think Phantasm 2 works so much better.
Yeah, I mean, I think Phantasm 2 is a great sequel.
Yeah, me too.
But in my opinion, though, I still prefer the original Phantasm over Phantasm 2. But, I think with that said, though, I like all 4 movies, though.
I think Phantasm 2 is the film Coscarelli would have made if he had the money in Phantasm 1.
Probably, yeah.
So Phantasm 2 takes place right after Phantasm 1, like directly, and we learn that this whole thing was in the mind, and so...
No, that's when we learned that it wasn't in the mind.
Yeah, it wasn't in the mind, but he was thinking it was in his mind.
Yeah, like... Reggie's trying to tell him, like, hey, Mike, this was all in your head. And turns out that it wasn't when the dwarfs show up.
Yeah.
This one is just way more action-y. Like, and it's not action-y like a action horror film. It just, Don Coscarelli likes blowing shit up. And
I was gonna say,
I noticed that in Phantasm 2, there's so many explosions.
In the whole series, though. The whole series.
They fucking blow up the house right at the beginning of the movie. I mean, like,
yeah, and it was fucking like an epic explosion. Like,
that was like a hell of an explosion.
The house blowing up that probably cost more money than all of Phantasm.
Yeah.
So you knew right away this movie was a bigger budget. So, but
yeah. So basically, this is the film that kind of transitions Reggie from a secondary character into a main character, which is awesome because in my opinion, you can never have too much of Reggie.
Reggie fucking rules.
He rules very, very, very
I
hard.
always thought it was quite interesting that, Reggie Bannister, plays Reggie, and then Mike, what's his real name?
Michael Baldwin.
Michael Baldwin, and he plays Mike. So they actually
And
play
Jody.
characters
Is
are
it
the real
Jody?
names.
Also Jody.
Yep.
I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah. Actually, one thing we never mentioned about the first film, I'm just going to backtrack for 1 second here, was the scene where Reggie Bannister and Jody are playing guitar. They're actually really fucking playing that shit and coming up with songs right on that when they were filming. I thought that was insanely cool.
I think we forgot to mention also how well that works as establishing the bond and the friendship between them.
Yeah, totally. I mean, like Coscarelli said, he shot like
series.
He shot like an hour and a half of extra footage, which we eventually end up seeing in part 4, which is very cool that he shot all that film because it worked out well for part 4. But yeah, he shot like all that, that character build up with Mike and Jody and stuff like that. But yeah, that's just a perfect example of a scene that I'm glad that they kept in there. But they had shot like even more scenes with them playing music and stuff.
They shot so much shit, dude. They shot. I think he said it would have been like a 3-hour epic or something.
Yeah, it's fucking nuts, man. It's crazy that they actually did shoot that much stuff, considering how they shot the movie just on weekends, right?
Yeah.
So it's pretty
$300K budget.
Yeah.
And so yeah, this one picks up with Jody and Mike in the house. Or Mike and Reggie in the house. Jody is dead. Jody's dead, right?
Yeah. Jody is dead.
Okay. Basically, the tall man, it's like a full-on attack. The assault from the dwarf creatures.
Fucking breaks through the mirror and fucking grabs them. And
Star Wars and Phantasm were being like filmed at the same time. Or no, Star Wars was released when Phantasm was filming. Coscarelli says that the Jawa dwarf creatures were not inspired at all from Star Wars. He said one of the people shooting was like, "Hey, did you see the new trailer to that Star Wars movie? These like creatures look exactly like the ones in that movie." So according to him, they both had the same idea at the same time.
Surprised Mr. Big Old George Lucas hasn't went over and bent him over and just raped him with a lawsuit. Give me some money for caking my character.
Well, George Lucas don't own those characters anymore, right?
I know, but back in the day he did.
Yep. So yeah, once again, they're dwarfs are attacking. They escape. The house blows the fuck up. Then Reggie's family's killed from another house blowing the fuck up, which is actually the same house. If you guys didn't know that.
Yeah. And now they are on the road, and they are fucking out to get revenge.
And this is a road horror film, and
it really is.
This expands on the mythology of the tall man, and we're introduced to Mike is getting, after that scene, it flashes forward years later. Mike is being released from a mental hospital. He's no longer played by Michael Baldwin. He's played by another guy, like Josh LaGrossa or something like that. I can't remember the exact name. How do you guys feel about that?
I've always had a problem with it because as much as I would love to see Michael Baldwin in that film, I mean, it didn't happen. But yeah, honestly, the more I watch the movie, it doesn't bug me that much. But I would have loved to have seen not a character change though.
Yeah, I would have loved to see, considering everybody's the same in the whole fucking series except for part 2, it would have been nice to see Mike play that.
It definitely is one little problem I have with the movie, though. It definitely is that. It's a little off-putting, especially because when I watch the Phantasm films, I generally watch them all in a row, right? And it really kind of sticks out that that's not Michael Baldwin, So
this film was actually made 9 years after the first Phantasm. That's pretty interesting that his sequel was greenlit that long after. But the character to me, I don't think that I like I said, I would have liked Mike to play the character, but I actually kind of like this guy too. It's one of the cases where I like them both.
Yeah, I don't have a problem with him. It's just, it's just the fact that he's different, right?
So basically, the story of this one is the tall man is, moving out of that little town and hitting every little town, throughout, across the country basically, and they're tracking him. Mike also has these You get a sense that there's a few people that the tall man is interested in but doesn't want to kill, or he has some kind of connection with Mike and a few other people. They all connected too. It's never really explained or went into too much, but it does exist, and it kind of adds to the mythology of the series once again. So they're kind of tracking the tall man down, and Reggie actually says a cool little line. It was like, some small towns are like people, some get old and die off, others are murdered. And I always kind of like that line.
Yeah.
So they're going from town to town, and you have some really cool scenes when they're tracking down the tall man. They actually go to a supply store, and they make some weaponry. And this scene is one of my favorite scenes in the whole series, man.
I
Reggie
actually
makes
agree.
a quad barrel shotgun, which it has to be. You can see him standing right next to Campbell's chainsaw hand with that thing, dude.
Yeah. Who says? Is it Reggie or Mike who says, "Let's go shopping"? I think it's Mikey
Yeah.
that says it. But I love that scene though. They're just fuck, man. They come up with the best contraptions like so quickly.
Yeah.
It's so great.
And also in the commentary, Coscarelli says that he was told years later that the scene in Pulp Fiction was actually inspired by Phantasm. He doesn't know if it's true or not, but that's what he heard. The scene where Bruce Willis is looking around the shop, and he grabs this thing, and then he grabs that thing, and then I watched that scene, and I'm like, you know what? It kind of seems like it could have been.
Oh, completely. I never made the connection before, but now when that you mention it, completely.
And we all know how Quentin Tarantino, is inspired by films. Like that's his thing.
Yeah.
So, and then we have other cool scenes where this is probably my favorite scene of the whole entire series. Not my favorite scene, but my favorite visual. And it's when they're walking through that graveyard of empty graves.
Mm-hmm.
You know that shot? Oh,
yep.
Man, dude, that thing just is like filled with atmosphere.
Yeah, and that's the point where they realize that they've got a major fucking issue here.
Yeah.
Like, this guy's for real, man. Like, there's nobody around.
Yeah, and also you get the sense that the whole world is kind of not ignoring, but and not necessarily unaware, but kind of like a mixture of both of the tall man. Like, he exists, but they can't see it. Like, they kind of see it, but they don't. You know what I mean? You get the sense that it's like that they just don't see it correctly.
I get the sense that there's not that many people left in the world. But the weird part is that when they're traveling around and stuff, and Reggie's still paying for things with cash, so there still is like a society out there. But it doesn't seem like there's very many people. Like, I mean, the one scene where, no, is that in part? Oh my god, I'm starting to get them from running together.
They run together.
Yeah, the scene where I think that's in part 3, the one with the little boy when Reggie tries to drop him off at the place there. But you kind of get that sense that there's like nobody around. There's like this one house with this mom, and she's like basically fostering all these children and stuff. I get that feeling that there's like not a lot of people left in, at least where they are, because this is taking place.
Well,
like,
that's what I was gonna say. I don't get that feeling necessarily. I get the feeling that the world still exists as we know it outside of these small towns.
That's very interesting.
I think this is a very like the world is kind of ignoring it almost, or just not aware, or it's a very specific way that I think it works. So, like, the world doesn't pay attention enough to notice what's happening, and he's hitting these small towns, and I have a feeling that as he's going across the country hitting these small towns, eventually it's gonna carry over into the bigger cities. But I do think that the cities are still like happening. I get the sense that it's this very weird situation.
Yeah, that is interesting that you think that, because I completely think the opposite.
I mean, it would make more sense.
I think everything has been ravaged.
It would make more sense for it to be your way, but I always kind of just kind of got the feeling that that he's only interested in these small towns that nobody cares about and they don't notice.
Well, totally. That 100% makes sense, because, if you're going to start dipping into these small towns and shit, I mean, obviously people are from the bigger cities are not going to notice, right? You start taking out huge cities, well, yeah, then you get noticed, right? So I understand where you're coming from, but I just get that sensation, like when I'm watching it, that there's not very many people left. Because I mean, like when they're rolling around on the roads and stuff, there's no one fucking driving anywhere.
But they're all also always on these like long stretches of highway that are like not like these main roads.
Yeah, but those are still highway. Like you would still come across vehicles and shit. Like I mean, they kind of do, but they don't at the same time. Like it's just there's definitely a lot less people around. You know, I just get that sensation that if they don't stop this dude, man, they're gonna be the last ones left. You know,
I agree, but I almost don't want to think of it like I almost like the idea that like the world kind of is still going on, but you know they don't see what's happening yet.
But
I kind of like that idea better.
It's just another really cool thing about Phantasm, though, because look at the conversation that's just
yeah,
sparked.
and there is no
views
answer.
on
There's
this.
no right or wrong answer. It's
and
just
that's totally what's awesome about that. Yeah.
yeah. And then you know you have these cool scenes where like he the girl that he's you know connected to in his mind through like telekinesis or whatever, they think they find her and she got a fucking tall man thing coming out of her back, dude. I love that scene.
Yeah, man.
And they torture with the fucking flamethrower and oh man, dude.
Yeah.
The buddiness of Reggie and Mike is really cool in this film. You know, it's like a buddy horror, road horror fucking thing going on here.
Mm-hmm.
And you get the sense that they've been tracking him for a long time. You know, as the film goes on, you're like, they're always one step behind him. They get to a town, it's fucked. They get that, you know, then they start to the next town. They get to that town, and it was just fucked.
Yeah, that was another thing I was going to bring up too. Like how long of a time period is it from the time that Mike gets out of the I guess the mental institute, whatever you want to call it, to you know basically the end of the film? Because yeah, I do get that sensation too.
I think it's debatable,
that they're tracking him for a long time. Like it seems like, but at the same time, you could argue that it could have been over like you know a couple days.
I mean, I think that the reason that it looks like it could be over a couple of days is because there's no character changes. There's no beards grown. There's no different, you know, clothes torn. There's no weird things like that, you know, straight up tell you that this is how long. But also you get, just by the characters' reactions and the tiredness of them, and the just like, you know, like the routineness. Like they have a routine when they go places. They pull out their gear and they do this. It looks like they've been doing it for a long time.
Yeah, that's true.
Jeremy?
Well, that was an interesting discussion between you and Moodz.
Care to share your opinions on Phantasm II?
Well, what do you feel about like the whole mythology behind the, you know, the world? Like, how do you see it in the film?
Yeah.
Do you see it as like there's nothing left but them two and the tall man and maybe a few other random peoples here and there?
Well, you never really see anybody else besides them.
Well,
I get that feeling of like desolation. You know, everything is just everything's so.
In part 3, like I see it as like, all right, now this shit has really taken off, and like it's to the point of where there's like these random like scavengers like out there,
it's like
criminals and
why
stuff.
Was the chick? Where the hell did the chick come from? And how the hell did she survive instead of everybody else? Because she was out in the middle of nowhere, I guess. And not
you know the hitchhiker chick, the chick that did Playboy later on in life or whatever, or porn or whatever.
Yeah.
Like she seems normal. Like she doesn't know. Like you would think if this was happening worldwide, that there would be panic and people would know what's going on. But there's so many characters in the Phantasm series that just know about their little town and what happened to their little town. That you never hear them specifically like say like the world has gone to shit and this is what we're living in. You know, it's just like it's like their town has gone to shit.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's interesting how you look at it, right?
But
there's just so many ways to view this.
Like to me, part 2 feels like it's just happening. He's just hitting these little towns, and it's gonna get bigger. And then part 3 to me feels like, you know, this thing has really gotten out of control. And then part 4 feels like everything's gone to me.
Well, the reason why I feel that, you know, there's not a lot of people around or I guess it's because of the shopping scene. They just like walk into the supply store, no one's around.
Yeah, because that little town got fucking fucked.
But that's what I'm saying. Like, it could be just that little town, or it could be all the fucking town. I just get that feeling that it's just like, holy shit, like you can just walk into anywhere right now, from town to town, even big city or whatever, and grab what you need.
I love the scene,
and then of course pay for it too when you leave. So
when they drive down the road, like I really love the post-apocalyptic looking shots where the houses are boarded up and they're just the road got trash and cars overturned on it and stuff. Like those shots are very good in Phantasm.
Yeah, another reason that there's not very many fucking people around.
I agree, but just in that town.
Yeah, I don't know. You guys ever notice there's a scene later on in the film, I think it's in the like in the lab area or whatever, where it says there's like a container and it says the ashes of Mr. Sam Raimi on there.
Really?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, because Sam Raimi wanted to be in Phantasm II, and
really?
And I think this was before. When did Evil Dead? I can't remember, or it was Phantasm. There's a story in the commentary, in one of the commentaries, where he said
Evil Dead 2 was 87, right? So
okay, well, Coscarelli says that he wanted to be Sam Raimi wanted to be in one of the films in Phantasm, one of the Phantasms, and it just didn't work out or something. So he didn't know that Coscarelli was going to go on to be like a huge fucking director. I think it was Phantasm II actually.
Mm-hmm. Well, that would make sense with that little. So what's the deal with that then? Why do they have the ashes of Mr. Sam Raimi in there?
I guess because they was friends. It was just like a little,
just a little gag.
Yeah.
I always wanted to know what the fucking deal was with that. Just never looked it up.
Yeah, and then you have the they add more characters like the Gravedigger characters or whatever they're called with the gas masks.
Yeah, kind of like the I don't know, just the helpers or the fucking lackeys. I don't know what you even call them.
Yeah, the two morticians that. Yeah, what are those? Are they like?
But those guys
are they like the tall men, or are they human too?
Well, they were human though, because remember when they get killed, or the one dude gets killed.
The guy gets his arm chopped off, and I don't think he bled orange. No, I think he bled red.
No, they were both humans. They were both humans. So he was obviously using. I don't know why they were human though. It would make more sense if they weren't. It is interesting.
Okay, so this is back to the question of like is it everywhere? Or is it just there? If the tall man, because what he's doing is he is going from town to town and wiping them out. So, and when we do get to that one town, it isn't quite as bad yet. So you wouldn't it have to mean that there's still places that are going on normal, because that place was kind of going on normal as we are introduced to it. The family was there going to the funeral and stuff.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, there's arguments for pretty much any way you can look at this.
Yeah, we'll talk about
fun.
But the way I look at it, like, who knows? I mean, he could have taken out the entire East Coast. Like, this is taking place in the Northwest, right? Like, you can tell with the plates and shit like that. And so who knows? Maybe the rest of the East Coast was already wiped out, but now he's just on the side. Yeah,
Oregon? I want to say that it takes place in Oregon.
It does, yeah, which is by me.
In the foreign land of Canada.
In Canada.
The foreign land.
Well, it's close.
Anywhere near us? What are you talking about?
Oregon is, it's closer to me than it is to you guys. But like my point is that like the whole
I know
the whole East Coast was taken out, and maybe he's just they're in the Northwest right now. So I don't know. It's very interesting. You can look at it any way you want, right, JP?
Well, I agree. It's up for debate, and there's no right or wrong answer in this one. I just think it's just how you take it. So overall, Jeremy, what do you think of Phantasm II?
It's a very, very, very good sequel to Phantasm. I like how they expand the story quite a bit. Things started to make a little bit more sense in this one than it did with the first Phantasm, I guess. But it's a fun film. I could see why people love it a lot. I think that's why it has a Blu-ray release and the rest of the movies don't.
What do you
It's
not like
interesting.
about the Phantasm series? Let me ask you that.
Like I said, they were too confusing for the normal person. I think that's the main problem of why some people don't like them, because they're too stupid to sit down and figure out what's going on for themselves.
I think it's just hard to accept that, the Phantasm franchise, there's so many open-ended questions, and I think a lot of people have problems, kind of dealing with that, and I think that's what it is. I don't know.
I like the ending effects in Phantasm II when the old man's getting knocked off. I thought that was pretty cool effects.
Yeah, man, I love that scene.
Yeah.
It's great.
Yeah.
There's a lot of good effect scenes in Phantasm 2. I like when the when that one ball's going after that dude and he like chops his hand off and shit.
Yeah.
And that brings me to another thing. They expand the mythology of this series once again. Like now, these balls we find out are also keys to doors. Like the tall man uses them as keys too. Like it's so interesting to me that there's just so much more to explore with everything in the film. Like it just seems like there's these ideas that just are there, and Coscarelli just is like comes up with these ideas. Like it's just neat to me.
I know. I've even heard people say that, exactly, like they kind of expand on that a little bit, but they've said that, they don't, Coscarelli adds these things into the films, but they don't really go anywhere because, it kind of gets to a point and then it's just like, you still don't know what's really going on. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But I think that's, like I said, I mean, we could say it over and over again. I still think it's just such a great way of, executing a film.
I gotta give him credit for being able to write a four story epic. Most of these sequels, usually get written by a different person or directed by a different person. It really kept, to the original film of what Don Coscarelli wanted to do throughout all four films. No one else had the say really in what he should do and what he shouldn't do.
I couldn't even imagine someone else directing one of these movies because, Coscarelli,
it's so specific.
It's very specific, but the atmosphere through all four films is very unique. He manages to keep that feel the same throughout all four films, which is very hard to do because he's got different settings, night and day, and other weird things that are going on. But
I think he does nighttime so well in these films.
Yeah, really.
It really is like amazing. Like the scenes at night and just the cemeteries and the graveyards and the streets and just the houses that they go to, the like abandoned houses. And I think this is a good time to speak on how fucking much of a pimp Reggie is. Reggie's so fucking awesome, dude. So yeah, I mean, Phantasm II to me is the height of the series. I think it's the best in the series, and I think that it's everything that the first film is plus a lot more.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's definitely a amazing sequel to an amazing film. Yeah, I don't know. Phantasm II is. I just really like the fact that it's a different film because it's obviously not taking place, I guess in one setting because they're constantly on the road and stuff. I think that's hard to achieve and do right, and keep that atmosphere and just keep the story developing, but keep it interesting. I don't know.
And my experience with Phantasm 2 also probably comes to why I like it so much. Back when Monster Vision was on,
hell yeah,
this is the first I watched a lot of. I got one of the main reasons I became such a horror fan was because of Monster Vision and Phantasm 2. This is actually the first one I seen in the series. Also, I was watching Monster Vision, and I want to say that the film The Hand and Phantasm 2 were playing together on Monster Vision, and Joe Bob, did the, drive-in totals, and I watched that Monster Vision religiously at that time, and I was introduced to this crazy weird film with this tall guy that just scared the hell out of me, and ever since then I used to rent them all the time. And I rented the first Phantasm with Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and that was like one of my favorite experiences ever.
Mm-hmm.
So Phantasm II. I mean, wait, like, you think we pretty much talked about Phantasm II enough, or got more to say?
No, that was a lot. My mind is on overload.
Yeah, I don't know. I think that's pretty much it for Phantasm 2. It's just
Ratings.
Uh, hmm. See, I'm so much better at talking about movies if I'm by myself and writing about them. Fucking talking about them so fucking hard. I've noticed that by doing these podcasts, when you ask me about my opinion about things, I can't fucking say what I want to say because I'm not used to fucking talking. I'm so used to writing. But I give another 8.5 out of 10, same as Phantasm One.
Well, touching on what you said about kind of like, you're so much better at, by yourself. I actually, when I first started YouTube, I fucking could not like think, like I couldn't really think of like what I wanted to say. But over, you know, all these different projects and, chat rooms and stuff, I've gotten used to it a lot more. So you'll probably, get used to it the more we do this show.
Oh yeah.
Phantasm 2 for me is a 9 out of 10. Moodz.
that's interesting because that's exactly what I would give it to. 9 out of 10.
Phantasm 2. Phantasm 3 from the year 1994?
4.
94? I think it's
94.
4.
94.
Okay. This one picks up right right where the last one left off once again. There's actually a really cool transition from the placing Michael A. Michael Baldwin into the series again. It picks up with him in the hearse, like his character was in the previous film, and it's like a weird cut, and then it shows him in the window, and it's like it's actually him and not the guy who played him before. I thought that was interesting how they reintroduced the character. This one to me is a little too comedic.
Wow, I never even. Wow, interesting.
I think the zombie characters, that drove the pink hearse in the film. I don't
Yeah,
like those characters. I think there's the worst characters in the Phantasm series. Um,
yeah, it doesn't bug me. I don't know,
every
but I
character
I
is.
understand what you're saying. Like with the zombie cop
I like that. I like that
on
scene,
on
but
on the roof.
I like that scene.
I
But
mean, I can see where the
yeah,
comedy's coming in because it's pretty funny actually how he shoots him. But
yeah. But so the characters in the hearse, the pink hearse, they're to me they're just every character in the Phantasm series, including the car, including the quad barrel shotgun, including the little dwarf things, including the spheres, have so much to them, and these guys just feel generic zombie dickhead characters.
yeah, I see where you're coming from with it. They're just
Um,
not. They're not that intriguing, I guess.
there's just nothing to them. They're
Kind
just
of bland. Yeah.
there. Even like the gas mask guys, there's something to them. Like you feel like there's some story with that gas mask guy,
Yeah.
uh, or there could be at least. Um, so this one follows, Reggie mostly. Actually, this is one where Reggie becomes like the main character.
Yeah.
He's looking for Mike. At first he doesn't want to, I believe, right? Or no, that's in part 4.
Yeah,
Part
it's
4.
part 4.
Okay, so Reggie's looking for Mike. And he runs into this little kid, which I actually thought was an interesting addition to the crew. A little badass kid whose
Kid was a
father was
fucking
the sheriff.
Yeah, this
he's a
kid,
fucking
badass
sharpshooter, man.
motherfucker. Badass
Yeah,
motherfucker.
you get the idea that his father was the sheriff. I don't know if they actually say that. They might say it. I can't
No,
remember.
I think they do say that his father was a sheriff.
Okay,
Yeah.
and they're basically, he meets a couple other characters, and they're basically looking for Mike. Mike is, where the fuck is Mike?
Mike is not there.
It's just he's not there. Did they
Yeah.
do? Do we? These films run together so much, man. Um, care to say stuff?
Yeah, I'm just trying to remember how they introduced because Mikey. I'm just trying to remember how or why he's. I seriously can't even remember why.
Well, I believe that the tall man takes him in the hearse at the beginning of the film, right? Doesn't that happen?
Yeah.
Yes, that does happen.
And then we just don't see him until later or something. I can't. I don't know if we're flashing to him or what. I can't remember.
No, I think that it's definitely on the lines of that. But yeah, I think I'm always might have been a little bit confused by why or where Mike was real and then what exactly, because it's not really explained exactly why the tall man is doing what he's doing to Mike, because he could have just killed him when he wanted to, but he needed him for something, right?
Well, that's the thing. There's always this underlying connection with Mike and the
Yeah.
tall man, where you think you get the sense that the tall man has bigger plans for him than to just kill him, but we're never really sure what those plans are, and he never really like I mean, eventually he kind of like puts a spear in his head in part 4 or part
Yeah.
3. That happens in this movie at the end.
Yeah.
But we don't really know what he's going to do besides just maybe control him. But that goes to the idea of maybe we don't want to really know what he wants. But I just like the idea that he has this connection. He sees something in him that he doesn't see in normal people. I like that.
Yeah. The kid's name was Tim, I believe.
Okay, Tim, pretty cool character. I also like Rocky a good bit too.
Rocky's cool.
Kind of an odd choice though.
I definitely agree.
Short-haired black chick, really tough army looking, chick, and
Yeah.
Reggie. It just it's a total 180 from the girl in the previous film. But I guess that shows that Reggie's down for whatever and anybody.
Oh, shag anything.
Reggie does not discriminate against any type of woman.
He's like Austin Powers.
So what are your overall opinions on Phantasm 3?
Didn't stick with in my mind as much as Phantasm 1 and 2 did.
Yeah, Phantasm 3 I find to be not forgettable. It's a good film, but it's kind of like a dumbed down version of part 2 in a way. It's set on the road a lot, and yeah, I mean, you mentioned the comedy elements in the film. I don't really think it's standout comedy. Like there is some goofy moments, like with the fucking zombie, the zombie police guy on top of the car. He's getting shot from the shotgun that's in the shotgun holder.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't really think it's like overly that comedic or whatever, but
Is the zombie cop in part 4?
Maybe it is in part 4. Man, part 3 and part 4 always mix together for me.
I think the zombie cop's in part 4, dude.
Yeah, whatever. Yeah. But yeah, I don't know. Phantasm 3 is very much like Phantasm 2 in my opinion, but it's just kind of...
It's not as grand.
Exactly. Like, it's just not as, like, full forced.
Yeah.
It's definitely got a lower budget than part 2. There's not a lot of...
Yeah,
there's definitely not... Yeah, there's not the house explosions and shit in this one, but... Yeah, Phantasm 3 and 4 always seem to blend for me.
Dude, but there is a very fucking cool pink hearse flying through the air. Did you see all the air that thing got, man?
Oh, yeah.
There's always, like, these chase scenes in Phantasm. It's like, chase scenes and cars flipping over and shit. Which I'm like a very... to do like action in a horror film for me is like I don't like it. Like I don't like aliens. I like aliens, but that's something that I don't like about aliens. I don't like all the action.
One thing I do like about Phantasm 3 though is like the eye spy cam that the tall man kind of introduces. You remember that thing? It's
the
like,
eye spy cam.
It's like a sphere that has like a fucking eye. And it's like
a laser shit.
Yeah. I thought that was actually pretty cool.
Yeah, I like the idea that there's different kinds of spheres, and there's bigger ones and gold ones and silver ones and fucking flamethrower ones and shit.
Yeah, man, I thought that was really cool. And then there was like they talk about the lurkers that only come out at night and shit like that.
Yeah, once again, adding to the mythology and the world of the tall man.
Yeah, so they come out at night and they steal bodies, and because that's what happens to Tim, right? I think he buries his family out there or whatever.
Yeah,
and then the next morning they wake up and him and Reggie are like, well, they're gone, and he's like, yeah, that's when they introduced like the lurkers. They take the shit at nighttime and stuff.
This
So
film was like 6 years after the second one too. You know, once again, a far stretch in between films.
yeah, yeah. You can kind of start to tell. I think in part three, like how much older Angus Scrimm is getting.
Yeah, because he looks old in part one.
I know, but by part three, man, he's like old.
Yeah.
Like I think in part three, he's like 191 years old or something.
That's why part 5 will never work unless
Well, I even just read a thing like there was Don Coscarelli was saying that Angus Scrimm is like totally down.
I'm the one that told you that.
You know, was that well? I was actually
Yeah.
reading a thing too. I was reading an article on it too, but he was saying that he's like in really great shape and stuff. And I'm like, that's how old is Angus Scrimm?
He's like
86.
94.
86.
86.
Oh, fuck, he's getting
Why did I
up there.
think 94? Maybe I was saying 84. Yeah.
Yeah, they gotta really they gotta get that
87
shit out, man.
actually 87.
So, you know, Phantasm 3, like you said, I think it's a bit of a step down and just not as big and awesome as Phantasm 2.
Yeah.
It still is pretty fun. Those like zombie characters I really don't like. It's one of the things in the Phantasm series it just doesn't feel like it belongs. It just feels out of place to me. And I like also it's just I don't know exactly what I don't like. I guess it just comes down to Phantasm 3 not being as awesome as part 2. I think that's mainly what it is. It's just not as awesome.
I do think in Phantasm 3, like when they're traveling around and stuff, I think I get the feeling that there's a lot of devastation that's happening and stuff. Like, you know, like money is basically kind of irrelevant now. And shit like that.
You have the looters and the robbers and stealers in those 3 characters. And you get a little more sense of like out of controlness, just kind of like the type of characters that you'd see in like the Road Warrior or something like that. You get a feeling that the world's kind of like.
That's literally the exact same analogy I used. Like when I was thinking about this too, it was like the Road Warrior, very comparable. It's interesting that you brought that up. So, but yeah, Reggie's kind of he's pretty sleazy in this movie. I got to say, like I love the scene where he gets the fucking hotel room. And like, yeah, we got twin beds.
Yeah,
we got
a jerk.
Yeah, and then he's just like, kind of smirking to himself, and he's like, well, obviously, I'm just gonna take the one queen, but he like totally fucks the kid over though.
Yeah, dude, like it's not like he just like tricked the kid into like going in another room. Like he puts him in actual danger, like sleeping out in the car during like this like crazy like dwarfs and fucking zombies and spheres that will kill you in like 2 seconds.
I think that they're really trying, like in part 3, they actually kind of question like, how do we kill the tall man? I think that's when the question gets brought up, like what do we do?
Is this the one where Mike gets the vision of in the first film when when he walks past the ice truck and the tall man reacts to the cold?
Yes, it is.
I thought that was kind of interesting, because Coscarelli looked back at just the scene that he filmed, because I guarantee you he didn't think, of that back in the first film.
Yeah.
And just kind of looked at it and was like, hey, he kind of has a weird reaction here. Let's make him afraid of cold, or cold hurts him or something.
Yeah. So that's basically how they kind of come up with the idea of this might work.
Of course you can't kill the tall man though.
No. Well, they learn. Obviously, they even talk about it in part 4 where they're like, man, you can't even kill the tall man. So
can't even do it.
Just can't do it, man. You got to accept it. So I don't know. It's kind of interesting.
Yeah. But so
I do like, when they first get in, or when you first get introduced to Tim, his like fucking awesome like traps and shit that he has set up in his house. Yeah. I love that, man. I thought that was so much fun.
I thought it was cool and stuff, but also I felt like it kind of takes a step out of like the world of Phantasm. To me, it feels almost like
I don't think so.
And cartoony a little bit.
I don't think it does, because it's just one boy, right? Like he's just kind of protecting himself, and it's such a quick scene though too, right? It's not even like
that
really
is out of it. Thing also that it doesn't last long.
No. So.
I think
yeah.
overall, Phantasm III, Lord of the Dead, is still a fun film and still, adds to the series. I think we learn a little bit about the spheres, how they have like little brains in them and stuff.
Yeah.
Once again, adds to the mythology of the series. But overall, it's just a step down from part two.
Your thoughts on it, Jeremy?
Oh, everything you said.
All right.
Yeah, it really is though. I mean, what it basically comes down to is that it is kind of just it's just not as good as Phantasm II. It's basically the same thing with, you get introduced to a few more things and stuff, but I don't know. I think part three could have been a little better. I've heard a lot of people say it's their least favorite in the franchise too.
Part four is my least favorite, but
That's hard between 3 and 4, man. I gotta
Yeah.
think about that one. I give it a 7.5.
Really,
Yeah.
I gave it a 7.
Phantasm 3 I'd probably give it 7 also.
I find it weird that I'm like the one that's like giving it the lowest ratings. I don't know what's going on with me. But so this one kind of ends with Reggie being hung up in like. Do you ever notice how the Phantasm films like end with like main characters dying, but somehow like write them back in like the next installment? Isn't that weird?
I know. But, it's part of that very confusing mythology. Maybe
Yeah,
maybe the
mean,
whole fucking thing is just one big ass dream. Who knows?
it's kind of like it works though, because like you kill off like a main character at the end of a film and you're like, oh shit, man, like it's like, oh, Reggie's dead. And then it's like,
Yeah.
in part four we kind of want Reggie around. Well, let's write him back in somehow, and they kind of do it. It makes sense in this one. The spheres didn't actually have their blades out, they just was kind of pushing them against the wall. That's kind of the idea.
Mm-hmm.
And the tall man lets him go, and I think part four is where we're introduced with CGI.
not
Phantasm
not the
IV
CGI.
Oblivion came out in 1998, and it actually came out 10 years or 20 years after the first film.
And I gotta admit,
19
it
years.
looks a hell of a lot better than Cube 2. And that was how long before fucking Phantasm 4 came out.
Wow.
I remember watching Phantasm 4 for the first time, like when it came out, and just being so intrigued how Coscarelli, basically edited that film. He used a lot of that footage that was cut from the original film.
A lot of it.
Like a lot of it, which I think
like
is
a
very
third
cool.
of it.
But it like fucking it works for, obviously he did it because of budget constraints. They had like what, budget issues or some kind of issues.
Does anybody
in making that
know
film?
the budget on Phantasm 4?
No, I don't.
650K.
Fuck, that's it, eh? Wow.
Yeah, that's
But I know like there was some major production issues and stuff, and that's why the film ended up what it was. A lot of fucking using old footage and stuff, and I just found it was very intriguing because he cuts it in very well. Like the footage that's cut from the original film works. It fits in very. It doesn't look old or anything. You know what I'm saying?
well, I believe yeah, but
It did a good job with it.
Going back to what you were saying about the budget and the way the film was made and all that, I do know that I before I get to that, does anybody know if Coscarelli actually owns the rights to these characters and stuff? Because it seems like he does.
I wouldn't see why he wouldn't.
Yeah, but I don't think he's a sellout.
I don't think you have to necessarily be a sellout to sell your characters, but
Why? Isn't that a sellout?
it's just the way that the world works. It's I don't look at Wes Craven as a sellout for losing the rights to. Sometimes you just got to do those things in order to get films made.
Yeah, when I think of things like that, I always think of Lloyd Kaufman selling off the Toxic Avenger.
Well, that quite literally
that just
is a
irks
sellout,
me, man.
though.
That just irks me, man. I'm like, oh.
But it doesn't surprise me at all.
But he's a Jew. He needs his money. No, I'm not being racist. I'm not being racist. This is coming from a Jew, so.
It's okay. My friends are black.
I'm a Jew, so I can make fun of my own self.
That's correct.
But, that doesn't surprise me about Lloyd Kaufman, though, because he's much like Charles Band, who you can just tell by the way they are. They're in it for nothing else but the money. You can tell by the quality of and the heart they put into their films. You never really
Exactly,
see
because they sell fake
heart into it.
VHSs. Fucking Charles Band asshole. Uh, you didn't hear about that, JP?
Oh, I
Yeah.
heard about it.
Oh, we
Oh,
know about
okay.
that.
It's kind of still debated, but I think that he 100% is selling fake VHSs.
Oh, for 100% sure he is, man. Charles Band's a fucking crook.
Charlie Band. I guess we're not going to be interviewing Charlie Band.
No, probably not.
I hope not.
So
So like, what are your guys' thoughts on part 4? Because I personally
well,
actually kind of like the film because I just like the way it was structured and put together for what Coscarelli had to do with that movie. Because, like you said, there was a lot of budget constraints, issues in the production, and I think he did a pretty good job with incorporating that old footage and stuff and kind of making it what it needed to be. I liked it.
well,
I think it's
before I give my opinions on that, actually, what I was going to say next was, about the budget and stuff. From what I understand, his idea was let's make a Phantasm IV set in full-on post-apocalyptic world with Reggie as our lead with his quad barrel shotgun and stuff, and a new character that he runs into played by Bruce Campbell. And it was going to be like, Bruce and Reggie against a tall man in the, completely destroyed world, and, tons of spheres, tons and tons of spheres and tons of creatures. It was just going to be like an all-out war pretty much.
why is there so many movies that are, thought up with Bruce Campbell being in there that never happened?
I don't know, man, but
Like,
that
fuck, man.
he couldn't get the money for it, but
Yeah,
he could get $650,000, and he looked at he looked at the footage that he had that he always wanted to use for something. He thought that it was, kind of messed up that he never got a chance. He never could use this footage for anything. So he created a fourth film around that footage, because that's basically what he did. He looked at the footage, saw what he had, and wrote a screenplay around that footage,
Yeah.
which actually ends up working way better than you would ever imagine.
I
given
thought the same
idea
thing, man.
behind that.
I remember hearing about the film when it came out, and people were like, "Oh, it's basically just all this cut footage, blah blah blah." And I was like, "Fuck, just shitting on the movie." And then I watched it, and I was like, "You know what? I really kind of enjoyed that movie, man. I think it worked."
I remember when I first seen it, I was really confused. I was like, but these look exactly like the actors that was in the first film, like the
Yeah.
flashback footage. Because I
Yeah.
didn't know that, like, it never occurred. I mean, I was young when I first seen this, but like the dude. So they had a lot of false endings in Phantasm One. Not false endings, but endings that they shot that they, let's redo the ending. Let's redo. And one of the endings was when they, hung the tall man, and he doesn't die. He's just hanging there.
Yeah.
And that really shows like how the tall man like doesn't die. And it's just creepy as hell that he could just hang there and be living.
Yeah, man.
It's one of my favorite scenes.
They shot like a bunch of different endings, didn't they?
Yeah,
I think-
there was a few. There was like 3, 4.
But they also bounced around like a million different ideas that they never shot. Because I
Yeah.
remember that, and some of those ideas were just ridiculous. But I think what they did with the ending ultimately worked. So I'm glad that they did it like that, though.
So this film was supposed to get the money for the next Phantasm film, which would be, the Bruce Campbell and Reggie. Ah, man, that would have been such an awesome film. Too bad it never happened.
Yeah.
But I think just Bruce Campbell and Reggie just seem like they could have been perfect together.
Oh fuck yeah, man! Those guys would have been apocalyptic warriors, man. It would have been fucking
And
great.
how about if they actually, I mean, this is like going way out there, but how cool would it have been to see like a Phantasm Evil Dead crossover? It just seems like it could work.
It actually probably could work. Be very cool.
I'm surprised nobody done a comic, because that, if you guys haven't noticed, like that's where the crossovers actually happen. Like I don't know how they're able to do. I guess like there's no rights constraints or whatever. But you see a lot of the actual script to Freddy versus Jason versus Ash ended up being the comic. Like you guys seen that in the documentary Crystal Lake Memories. They talk about that. That's pretty cool.
I actually have that comic. It's awesome.
I know. I got it. I've been looking for it. It's like really pricey.
Yeah, I got mine when I think it's probably just obviously out of print or whatever the fuck. I don't know how comic books really work, but it's been years and years since I've actually collected. But yeah, so what are your overall thoughts on 4?
I think 4 is exactly what it is. It's a film that suffered from a low budget and somehow did better than it had the right to.
Yeah,
Like it
I
had
feel the
no
same
right to
way.
be as good as it is.
Yeah, I every time I watch it, I'm just always intrigued at like how well Coscarelli edited that film. You know, the old footage and stuff. Like, because the original film was shot really well. Like that footage fits in really good.
Oh, it
You,
does.
you know what I'm saying? Like,
Not many movies could pull that off, which is
no,
pretty surprising.
I
they
don't know
can't.
any movies that have done that.
No, like the transitions from the new footage and the old cut footage from Phantasm is just it fucking blows me away, man. I can see how this would be confusing to some people going, damn, that kid looks exactly like Mike as a young child. Oh, wait a minute.
It is.
It actually is the same person.
So
It's fucking wild. Yeah.
this is the one where Reggie doesn't really want to help anymore. He's like, yeah, I've been doing this for fucking like 20 years. I don't even want to do it anymore.
Yeah, the story,
Um,
the timeline in it is like from in real time. This is what 4 years later that they made part 4, and I think it seems
Yeah.
like it's quite a bit later, like in like the story timeline. Like he's been doing this shit for fucking ever. But
Yeah.
it's kind of it's intriguing that he's still alive. He's still doing it. Like the tall man never got him. I found that very intriguing. That you don't exactly know how long it's been, but it's been long enough that he's fucking tired, man.
Yeah,
You know?
and this feels like where the whole world is a complete wasteland now.
It does,
And like this one does some like kind of expands on the like where the tall man came from. His name is Jebediah Morningside.
Yeah.
And he created some kind of something, some kind of teleportation, time travel device where one day he went through, and when he came back, he was no longer Jebediah Morningside. He was the tall man.
Yeah.
Which I think the idea of what happened when he walked through there is so awesome. Like I
think
see
it's
all these different things in my head, and
it's
just
so intriguing that it just made him who he is. I
Yeah.
love that too, and that's all you need to know.
And
You know,
how
you-
weird was it seeing the tall man? He's like, "Hey, have some lemonade," and it's like, it was like,
Dude, I
this
still
is like
think-
scary.
I actually think that's one of the most eerie scenes in the movie because it's
Yeah.
all like lit, it's all like daytime lit, and he's all like talking normal.
And
And he's like, "You want some lemonade?" And I'm like,
and when
what
he
the
says,
fuck?
"Did you come through the teleporter thing, dude?" That creeped me out for some reason. It's like,
Totally.
oh,
Well,
I don't
because
know why.
every time, the first time I watched that, I thought that something was going to happen in that scene. I thought that he
Yeah.
was fucking with them, right? And I was like, and then Mike realizes after, he's like, man, I've fucking seen him in a different light or a different time. I think that's really interesting, man.
Yeah, and when he walks in the fucking poles and then he comes out, the look on his face is so drastically different, and it's just it's fantastic acting by Agnes Skim. That's what it is.
Yeah.
And I just I love the idea, like something so bad happened to him in that other world or that other place that he went to that
But
he
it's just
turned
a
into
porthole.
this.
But like what? Like it's so intriguing what the fuck it is. Like how is it doing that to him? Like what? It's like some kind of like straight up just evil. It lurks right in that portal, and if you come in contact with this evil presence or spirit or whatever the
Or
fuck you call
alien
it,
presence
or alien presence,
or
it
infection
instantly
or something.
It changes your whole fucking. It changes you.
Yeah.
Man, it honestly, I think Phantasm IV is just a little overlooked by people. I think that
It had
I
some
think
strong ideas, man.
it really does. It really does, man. The ending of the movie of I guess the franchise really.
So far.
Yeah. I
The
mean,
ending when they're just driving away in the ice cream truck, it's so weird, man. I don't know.
It's
It
so
seems
weird
very
because-
fitting, but at the same time, it's like
weird because
that's the end of everything. That's the end.
the end of the movie is actually cut footage from the first movie.
Yeah.
I was like, I was actually so like kind of not mad when I first watched, but I was like, what the fuck, man?
Yeah.
I was so confused though. I was like, they just put that footage. I was like, I didn't know what to think, but the more I watch it, I kind of accept it. But it is a weird ending though.
Yeah. I think
It
there's
is really
so
weird.
much more to tell that it just sucks that we never got to see it. But I still like the things that we did see in this one. Like, I think that, you know, the strongest point in the whole entire film is those sequences with when the tall man became the tall man. And there's also the flashback, like, Civil War footage that's in there too.
Yeah,
Um,
it's so weird. So weird.
yeah. Also, I wanted to say that the mausoleums in part 3 and 4 were um, filmed in Compton.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Some like mausoleum in Compton or something. And Reggie actually worked in a fucking mortuary after the first Phantasm, and he knew about that one in Compton and stuff, and that's how they went there and shit.
That's really intriguing. Hmm. Yeah, I don't know. I think part 4 feels so surreal. Do you get that kind of
Yep,
overall feel
for
to it? It's
sure.
just very surreal and
I like
so
the
much,
sequence.
obviously, with all the flashbacks and stuff. But even like, yeah, like you mentioned the Civil War one, and but yeah, that movie is just so surreal. I think it's actually
All the poles out in the desert like that. There's some great shots with the tall man like
yeah.
way out in the desert, and like just very far away. There's some great shots in that film. I think this one has you know, some of the best shots in the series, for being, you know, so low budgeted and just, you know, all these constraints and stuff on the film.
You know, it's interesting because you know you watch all the Phantasm films and like the direction and the cinematography is just I think it's great in pretty much all the movies, but um, Coscarelli doesn't really ever get noted as like you know one of the you know the great directors. Maybe it's because of the lack of movies that he's done. Like, what do you think about that? Like when you have a conversation about people's favorite directors or even the best directors of all time and stuff, does Coscarelli's name ever get mentioned in there?
No.
No, Coscarelli, besides being like on the Masters of Horror, like I think if like nobody really considered, like, he doesn't come up with the Toby Hoopers and the Cravens and the, you know, Carpenters and the Romeros of the world. And I
Yeah.
think he should. I mean,
I totally think so too. I think he, you know, um, I mean, at least he got the nod for Masters of Horror, which was cool. But yeah, I think he should get a little more credit for his
I would
films.
I would love to see this guy crank out a few more films, you know, horror films.
Yeah, he
Like,
definitely likes to take his time in between movies, doesn't he?
yeah.
Yeah, that's for
Fuck.
sure. 7
And what the hell's
years.
been up with Toby Hooper, man?
Well, he made a movie called Mortuary about 5, 6 years ago that was complete and utter shit. So
Yeah,
that's
I
what
did
happened
see
to
that
Toby
one.
Hooper. Oh
But
fuck,
he
dude.
was working on a film called Dejin like 2 years ago. That was like done filming. Is that film like still on the shelf or something?
I don't know whatever happened to that project. Yeah, I remember that also, but I not a clue. Might be something to look into.
Maybe he's working on that Poltergeist remake.
Ah,
Man,
so
he can
anyway,
only
Maybe
have.
he's finally gonna get a chance to direct Poltergeist.
all right. So if you guys had to rate Phantasm, what would you give Phantasm 4?
I'd bump it back up to I'd give it a 7.5 again.
I gave it a 6.5.
Ooh, man.
Oh, you actually gave it a lower rating than Part 3. Interesting. Yeah,
Yeah,
I give it a 7.5 too.
I think Part 4 is the worst film in the series. I don't think it's a bad film, but I just think there's not enough there for me
Oh,
to
the argument
really.
is totally viable. Like it totally makes sense.
And the reason there's not enough there, we know the reason. There could have been more there. We know that there was so much room for potential and stuff, but the facts are that there still isn't enough there, for me to really, you know. It's a film that I'll only watch if I'm doing a Phantasm marathon. Like, I'm not gonna pop in Part 4. I'll pop in Part 2, the Scream Factory edition, if I want to watch Phantasm.
Just had to plug Scream Factory, man. Just had to plug them.
So
Well,
on
that
the
edition is odd. That's like one of my favorite editions by them.
so the potential Phantasm 5, what was it called? Never Dead?
I didn't
Yeah,
even know there was a title. Hey,
yeah.
but
Well,
one thing I really like about the Oblivion title is how the IV is like perfect for the 4. You
Yeah.
know, the Roman
Well,
numeral 4.
that's how they did with Phantasm 5 like
The fee is
the
like,
via never is the 5.
yeah.
So,
Oh, nice. Yeah.
yeah, so that works
Um,
out. But
so about a year ago, I would say about a year ago, I was in a when John Dies at the end was being promoted. Don Coscarelli did a Reddit chat where and ask me anything on Reddit, and I happened to be there and partake in it. There was a lot of questions about Phantasm, of course, which he avoided most of them, because he was talking about John Dies at the end, respectively. Um, and once he got most of the John Dies at the end stuff out of the way, he answered some Phantasm questions, and he was asked, he's like, right away, I'll just get it out of the way. Phantasm V, I never considered really doing it. I never seriously considered doing it until I, started going to these conventions. I seen how many people actually want it. And the more that I see that, the more I realize that I have to, get working on Phantasm V. And the last time I talked to Angus, he said that he was, he was doing really good and in great shape and able to he said there was some funny like pun Angus said about his old balls or something, but I can't remember. That was so long ago. um, and like it seemed like he was definitely more interested than he's ever been in doing a Phantasm 5, and he's basically said, I guess I got to make it for these crazy fans now.
Well, that's really awesome to hear.
That was a year and a half ago, and we still haven't heard jack
it was
shit.
about a year ago.
A year, sorry. A year.
But I'm honestly, if I had to place money on it, I would say that we will never see a Phantasm 5. We might see a Phantasm remake, which obviously none of us wants. But
Fuck.
I just like the idea that it feels like if they're gonna do it, they need to do it within like right now,